Hello, just played loud Taavi is here, and we're gonna talk about the Beach Boys in this episode. I have my two lovely guests, Andrew on my right and Aidan here at the below me. And I guess we can start right into the show with memories of the Beach Boys.
Yeah. Okay. So for me, I'd say they're probably one of my favorite artists around. I knew their whole catalog before we did this dive, but I think this was a nice exercise to refine some of my thoughts. Um, well, I do love most of what people love about their work. I also think there's some worthwhile highlights to mine from some of their less acclaimed stuff too. So I'm excited to talk about some of those. And I knew mostly the early surfing stuff as a kid, and it was probably more around high school that I discovered kind of the other side to their material.
Nice. How about you, Aidan?
I don't know. For me, it was very weird because I think I heard a lot of the early surf and that kind of hits, but I also heard very early on the more like psychedelic, crazy stuff. Like I think Good Vibrations and Heroes and Villains were probably two of the first like five I'd heard because like Heroes and Villains is on the Fantastic Mr. Fox soundtrack, which I saw as a kid, and I love that song. And then Good Vibrations I heard in a ton of different places, along with some more obvious ones like Surfing USA. That was probably the other big early one I heard. And then I kind of got into their whole catalog in terms of like greatest hits. And I still stand by like the best way to get into any band is to find their best greatest hits and to explore from there. But I went with The Sounds of Summer. That has a ton of great stuff in terms of both the early, and it has songs from like Wild Honey and 2020. I think it does a pretty good job of having later stuff on it as well. And then I kind of dived off into each of the albums to the point where like, yeah, I know all of them by now. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. And I'd say I first became a huge fan when I was like, I don't know, like maybe 13, 14.
Yeah. Yeah, I kinda agree. Like, starting with the greatest hits is a good way to go. I definitely done that with some of my artists I love. What did, as a child, I guess I knew wouldn't be nice and good vibrations. I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be nice. Probably was in Friends. I'm guessing, or some sitcom I've watched, um, but I guess I didn't grow up with Beach Boys. I don't think any of my friends really listened to them or anyone I that really knew. So, but in like this last year or so, I've I heard maybe six or seven of their albums. Usually with Aidan, we did like listening parties, their some of their albums, and yeah, it was definitely a journey. 30 albums is a damn lot, I'd say. Um, So it would be interesting to see how we rank these. But for the actual ranking, we're gonna do five at a time, each of us, until we get to the top 10. Then we go one by one. And Andrew is gonna start it, and Aidan is gonna continue, and I will be the last one, and then we circle back. But yeah, Andrew, what's the bottom five each boys album?
Okay. So we'll start with number 30, Summer in Paradise. And this one has a reputation as historically awful, often flagged as one of the worst albums of all time. Now, I don't go that far. I can easily come up with stuff I dislike more than this, but I do think it's a shoddy record overall and the worst they did. If you even consider it theirs, because I mean, Brian's not there, Carl and Al are just kind of singing their parts, and it's mostly just like a Mike solo album with them kind of doing some vocals too. And he's probably the least musically gifted of the bunch. Wants to do kind of like these Kokomo retreats and all that stuff, and like the tracks produced artificially on Pro Tools. The drums especially are a big casualty there. Half the songs are pretty inferior covers or reworkings of old songs. I mean, Summer of Love is fairly cringeworthy, especially with the video. The updated Surfin' is pretty boring and not very good. It's a version of a band that I worry they're stereotyped as, but I do think there's still some spectrum to the songs. Some of the vocals, especially from Carl, sound pretty good. Hot Fun in the Summertime, I think, is probably a good enough song to withstand the treatment here. Maybe you could say that for Forever, even if it's blasphemy that they did it again. And I do like Lahaina Aloha, the Carl part there. It's quite nice. I think the songwriting is probably done a bit dirty by the production and arrangements. There's credible melodies in some of these, but I wouldn't recommend it to anyone unless they really want like a lame, like early 90s tropical rock sound. But I probably think the dregs of music go deeper than this. So that's a 1.5 for me. Going up to 2 stars, Keeping the Summer Alive. So I think the band had a lot of issues inside and outside the studio by this time. They're kicking off the 80s with a pretty poor album overall, kind of on autopilot, another contractual obligation. They try to get Brian running it, but he isn't really up to the task. Dennis is pretty much a no-show, more nostalgia. The songs, they're not really that bad in the demo forms I've heard, but I think the finished sound is what I really don't like. There's some polishing here on the vocals and the production that I just don't think sounds very good. Used to be a huge asset of theirs with the singing, and I think even with their older voices, they could do fine in a rawer approach, but here it's just a little bit overdone or obnoxious in a way. It kind of saps the life out of it. So Going On, the lead single, and the Carl ones are all right, but I think they're pretty choked by the production. Not horrible in the grand scheme, but a very easy to dismiss record. Probably the one I think about the least. Number 28, Stars and Stripes Volume 1, also 2 stars. One I often forget about altogether because it's more like a tribute album with the group on backing vocals. For whatever reason, they decided to do this, remake their old songs with country acts on lead. Brian's there again, and Carl's there, so it's the last time you had 2 Wilson brothers on an album. And it's a bit of a missed opportunity because I think they had some decent demos around this time, but instead they did this. It says Volume 1, but there's no Volume 2, so it wasn't that much of a success either. I think it's more inconsequential than a disaster, but there's not much point when you have the originals. A lot of them are just the same structure with like this 90s production and a country element. It's just not that great in general. I think Willie Nelson's Warmth of the Sun and Laurie Morgan's Don't Worry Baby aren't bad. I Can Hear Music with Kathy Tricoli, and especially Caroline No with Timothy B. Schmidt. They're not as country, and they kind of put their own spin on it, and it's kind of nice to hear Caroline No with backing vocals now. So I'd maybe listen to that song, and it's because it's where you hear the group presence is the most too. So best stuff on this one is near the end, but it's fairly pointless and not strong enough to surpass the concept of it. Number 4, which is 27 on the overall list. It's probably the first hot take for me. That's Why God Made the Radio. But I am up to 2.5 stars, so I go up fairly quickly on here. So after Carl's death, the band basically was just a touring act. They fractured off, but a reunion happened, major concert tour. I got to attend one of the shows, so this is kind of the one I got to experience in my lifetime. But it's also a tricky one to rate because I was pretty hyped up about it at the time, and I think what I liked about it, I do still like. There are some good songs here, and it closes out the recording career on a more respectable note than some of the last couple. Brian had more of a solo career by this point. He's writing, but I think the album suffers from elements that a lot of legacy acts have, which is like, you know, the vocal processing in the form of pitch correction and autotune is here, and I don't think it's as aggressive as some cases, but it's noticeable, and that's something that I usually have an issue with, especially when I see like Al and Brian's solo albums from the time sound a lot better. They don't have that much polish, and so, and it says a lot that the Mike song that he pulled from one of his albums probably sounds the best in terms of the vocal work on there. So I don't know, the production could have been better. It sounds kind of sterile. And there are some nostalgia themes here that don't work, like Beaches in Mind, I don't think is a very good song. It's a pretty unremarkable middle. Singles have some good hooks, maybe a little bit weighed down by the sound I mentioned earlier. But there is a really good suite at the end from Brian, like these melancholic ballads. And they do kind of show that there's more serious artistry here. And those are definitely my highlights for the record. From There to Back Again, Pacific Coast Highway, Summer's Gone. Pretty strong songs at their core. I do think the sheen of the overall record gets in the way of the overall album, but I'm glad they're not ending things on rock bottom here. And then my last one is Still Cruisin', 2.5 stars, which might be high for some people. The band had just been releasing the odd single for the past few years, and then they had a couple that hit big, Kokomo, and then a Wipeout cover with a rap trio. It started as this almost like a compilation of movie songs, and then they added a few other studio songs to fill it out. So I'm not going to count the 60s ones because, you know, they're on their own thing. But Brian had put out his first solo album, and it's not anywhere close to that quality. Production, again, pretty subpar, cheesy. You might think I would hate it, but I think I'm kind of around it the most. Maybe it helps that they kind of dropped all pretense here of being serious artists and sound more like they're just kind of, you know, embracing the time. Main reason for landing here is I think there's 3 tracks that I do kind of have a fondness for. In My Car, the Brian song, it's chaotic. It has like this 80s love you energy. Somewhere Near Japan sounds from the title like it could have been a train wreck, but it's actually a pretty nifty jangle song. Some nice vocal hooks. And I do think Kokomo, even if it's, you know, overplayed in their canon, is catchy for a reason. I don't give it too much credibility as an album. It probably should have been an EP, but I also don't have it in me to hate it. So there's a lot of music I would find harder to listen to than this. And I don't think it's a good album, but it's barely an album at all. And I think they could have done worse at this stage of their career. So that's my last one for these 5 at 2.5 stars.
All right. I definitely line up with you on a few of those. My number 30, I'm gonna go with Summer in Paradise, as you did. I agree that there's definitely worse music out there, but I'm not sure if there's music that I dislike more than this. Maybe something, but I don't know. It's just, especially for how good this band is, for this to be in their catalog is kind of crazy. I think that definitely hurts it a bit. Some of the songs themselves are actually good. You know, they're doing Hot Fun in the Summertime and Surfing Under the Boardwalk, but for some of them, they changed the lyrics and Under the Boardwalk. I don't know why. There's a lot of very strange decisions. A lot of the production sounds unfinished or demos, and it's not even interesting in the way that Smart Girls was, you know, happening at the same time. So yeah, this is just, I'm not a fan of this at all. I don't know, I give it half a star. I never want to listen to it. There's nothing about it I really like. And then number 29, I'm going with Still Cruisin'. I just think it's pointless. I've never liked Kokomo, probably my least favorite of all of their songs, including a lot of the Summer in Paradise trash. Like, I'm just not a fan of it at all. I agree with what you said. It's like EP basically in length. It's, it has rehashes of other songs, and it's just, it's a total like cash grab. And I guess, in the way that a lot of their 60s albums were cash grabs, except those were, pretty good, whereas this is not. So yeah, that's gonna be my number 29. Number 28, I've got Stars and Stripes Volume 1. I agree with everything you said. It's pointless. Like, there's no reason for it to exist. It's just, it just, seeing these remakes of classic songs, it's like, why? Put together a compilation or do something like that. If you're going to have a new album, get some new songs together, or at least if you're going to do remakes, at least pick like outtakes or songs that weren't on earlier albums. Like, give us something in the way of new material. So yeah, I'm just not a fan. Number 20, I guess 7, I'm going to go with Keeping the Summer Alive. I agree with what you said. It's probably their most easily dispensable album. I almost never think about it, especially because it's like coming out around the same time as 10 Years of Harmony, and they had singles around this time that are like reissues. So when I'm like thinking about what they're doing at this time, I almost never even think about it. Yeah, just not very much to say about this. Oh, and by the way, that one was 2 stars, so being nicer. The first 3 were all 0.5, and this is 2 stars. And then my number 26, I'm going to go with the self-titled Beach Boys 1985. It's got some like singles I like, like the lead stuff. That's cool. But to me, it just succumbs too much to kind of the weaknesses of that era, that it was hard for me to put it above even, even an album like, I don't know, MIU, which is probably pound for pound weaker, but the kind of approach in the 70s is, I find it a little less irritating. So I'm gonna give that one 2 stars, and that rounds out my bottom 5.
Nice. Yeah, we're gonna have a lot of same picks for bottom 5. My bottom pick is Summer in Paradise, which is I guess the best thing about Summer in Paradise kinda is Brian that isn't here, because now he can sleep in peace that he wasn't there. But yeah, I don't know what happened here. The drums or drum machines, whatever those are sounds awful. I don't know, like one of the first drums I've heard in a major album. And the production is on the way of true enjoyment for this album. And also, this being one of the longest albums they've done is insulting to me. But I don't completely hate it too. There's some in the middle that I enjoy. Like Slow Summer Dancing is a pretty nice song, but the snare is like super obnoxious there. So and Strange Things Happen, I think it's a stronger chorus than the verses, and the ending is pretty cool. It's like a longer outro with the guitar wails and kind of nice atmosphere actually. But yeah, so like La Heina, Aloha, I don't know how do you say it, catchy chorus there. But there's some really, like Summer in Paradise is very corny to me. So I don't like it. Forever is fine, but the original is way better. And Summer of Love is the Mike Love rapping song. That's a really horrifying thought to me. but I guess it happened. So we gotta live with that. And yeah, there's some strange maybe covers here. Doesn't really do much for me, but it's 1.5 stars. Bad album. But I'm actually going to 2 stars now. I have Still Cruising next, 29, which I guess 80s is my favorite period, but not for Beach Boys so much. It kind of, especially this feels like more of a compilation to me than a full thought album. And like the last 3 songs are just like basically old 60s classics. So it's kind of like odd in a way. And I don't like the rap song Wipeout. I'm not a huge rap fan, and I'm sure don't want Beach Boys there when I listen to rap. But yeah, Kokomo is kind of mid to me. I don't hate it. I don't really love it either. Come On Pretty Mama is kind of lame lyric, I'd say. But yeah, there's some I like Somewhere Near Japan. That's kind of fun. Nice lead guitar there. Island Girl. Elton has a way better Island Girl, I'd say. And In My Car there's some sort of high pitched voice, which is pretty funny to me. But yeah, it's a strange listen, the Still Cruising album, and even the title song is like that was in Lethal Weapon 2. I had no idea. Like that's an odd song to put a little bit Lethal Weapon 2, but I don't know. That's 2 stars. 28 Stars and Stripes, Volume 1. Glad we didn't get Volume 2 because I don't know, is this that worth it? So yeah, country covers of the Beach Boys classics. Yeah, unnecessary, but I guess when I heard it after Summer in Paradise, the sound was already so much better. It was more enjoyable that way. It's very 90s style, I guess, but I don't know. Andrew said he liked the Willie Nelson one, and so did I. And I'd say probably my favorite song was the Closure, Caroline No. I think that was a good version by Timothy from the Eagles. But yeah, then there was some like Long Tall Texan. I don't even remember that song. I don't know where was that released, but maybe some live album or compilation. That was No Thanks for me. That was a really odd version. So yeah, doesn't. I was almost surprised by this and some of these albums that these are like official studio albums. I'm kind of confused. But 2 stars for Stars and Stripes. Man 27. Keeping the Summer Alive, 1980. I'm pretty sure we have the exact list for now, at least with Aidan. I'm pretty sure, at least the order. But yeah, it's kind of one of these albums that I almost don't remember a lot from this. Going On, I like that. It has a good melody. Endless Harmony it has some cool parts, I guess, but it's not the best. And title song has Joe Walsh from the Eagles and solo doing the guitars, which is the highlight for me. But they do keep saying that title over and over and over and over. It's kind of crazy. So yeah, I don't. It's kind of it's a 2-star album. I don't really remember much from it. And my 26th is an album that hasn't been mentioned. I don't know, do I have this much higher, but it's 15 Big Ones from 1976. Again, one of these albums that passes me by at least. There's 15 songs. I'd say a bit too many. I don't think they're very big ones, as the album says. I wish it was like 10 big ones, so it would be a better listen. But I'm glad they got some sales through this, because I think their sales numbers could be much better. I don't know what happened there, but there's some cool Chapel of Love I like the synth on it. Kind of reminds me of the synths we would get on the next album a lot. There's some songs that are completely oof or uh-oh to me. At the phone, yeah, and Talk to Me are both no thanks. Also that same song, I don't like it. Damn, my notes for this album is really bad. I just have like really confusing thoughts of why I'm listening to this. But basically, but yeah, I don't think there's really anything I would get from this album, even if it's kind of enjoyable too. So it's kind of a mid album. So maybe 2.5 still for it. But yeah, those were my bottom 5.
I guess I'll jump into my next 5 here. And I guess I'll start off with another, I don't know, is it a hot take? I mean, I'll explain. So my number 25 is LA Light Album. And I'll preface it by saying there's stuff I really like on here. They close out the 70s with this new record deal. We're already behind with deadlines. So I think the infighting, the addictions, a lot of things were spiraling behind the scenes. But eventually they got this rolling. Like with Keeping the Summer Alive, Brian dropped out of the producer role early, brought back Bruce Johnson. And it's a bit like Carl and the Passions in that different members are basically going off with their own songs and directions. And what that gives you is something that's very hit and miss. The hits are very good, probably some of their last creative statements. And the misses really bog down the album for me. So I think where I'm coming here at a 2.5 5 is just that it feels like a real mixed bag. The good news is the songs that are good, I do like. As usual, it's the Wilson brothers who kind of bring that along, even though there's not really much Brian here. Dennis had a couple tracks he was working on. They're very good. Carl returns, and I don't know if they're up to his early 70s standards, but I do like Full Sail and Angel Come Home. Good Timin' was a Brian song from a few years prior that they turned into a pretty credible minor hit, and I do like that one a lot. It's just the consistency and the fact that, like, you know, the first half of this record goes along pretty well, but after that, it's really only Baby Blue in the second half that does anything for me. And you have like this elephant in the room of the 11-minute disco song right in the middle of the record, reworking Here Comes the Night. I think they do try, but it's just so excessive in every way, and it really destroyed any cohesion. And I do want cohesion in these records, even if some of the material and some of the other ones doesn't have the same highs. It's a popular pick for an underrated record, and while I can understand that, the appreciation for the better part here, I also don't think it works very well, the sum of its parts, just the way that it's constructed. And I think it was avoidable because, you know, there was other material they could have used in the vaults to put like a really good record in here. So that's why I kind of come in a 2.5 stars for that one. It's not short of good stuff. But my number 24 is Surf and Safari. So here's their debut. I think that I underrated a bit in the past. I don't think it's that essential on an individual song level. It's pretty rudimentary, more so than a lot of their other early stuff. But it's a quick, easy listen, and there's charm in the rawness. The title track is solid, and I do like the first kind of trace of Brian melancholy in Cuckoo Clock. 409 is decent, Moondog is decent. It's a respectable amount of original material for such a young act, and that would definitely pay dividends later. I think ultimately you're kind of getting what it is here. A bunch of teenagers starting up a surf rock band from the ground up, and they're working it out. 2.5 stars for that one. Number 23 is MIU album, and there was a great Beach Boys related product that did follow Love You, but that goes to Dennis's solo album, Pacific Ocean Blue. For the band, you pretty much found them, the divided camps that had been kind of developing over the past few years kind of came to a head here. They almost broke up on an airplane tarmac, from what I recall. And there's lots of substance abuse going along, firing and rehiring managers. So it's very chaotic for the group. And hey, it's another contractual obligation that they had to do. Kind of like Holland, they go on location, but this time they go to Maharishi International University in Iowa, which I guess, Alan, Mike, especially Mike, had like the spirituality component that I guess kind of led them here. But so you kind of get Dennis and Carl making just cameos, Alan, Mike dominating the record. Brian's involved, but he's not really running the show. He's in better voice. He's writing. He's not producing. And I think the production hurts it quite a bit. It's kind of has this cloying late 70s production. Hey Little Tomboy is an embarrassing subject matter as a song. But I do think elsewhere there is like the Brian catchiness. It didn't disappear overnight. The songs themselves, have their charms. I think She's Got Rhythm, My Diane, Match Point of Our Love hold up decently well, but some of the other stuff really succumbs to that sound. You get a couple more safe oldies, a lot of sunny soft rock stuff, kind of the first nostalgia resurfacing again, which I don't think worked well when they were past their 20s. It's a record I'd say isn't as bad as made it out to be, which I'll probably be saying a fair bit, but overall it's a band in turmoil, kind of making some ill-advised choices and coming out worse than it needed to be. Number 22, and this is probably the first one kind of in their classic run that I'm going to speak about, Beach Boys Party. I put it in the category of the Christmas record where it's like a neat little theme. It's hard to see it in the same light as the records that were on it with like, all these grand original material happening. It's kind of feels like, a way of meeting the studio demands for content for their more serious stuff. So I don't think it's an essential record, but it's kind of cool to hear them singing over loose acoustic playing. You get to hear them tackle Beatles, Dylan, doo-wop. Some of the tracks are a little silly. Some of them I quite like. Mountain of Love is a great song, great version of it. Devoted to You is nice. There Is No Other is nice. They got a hit out of it in Barbara Ann, which also stands out in this context. Though it's a shame that, the single from this period, Little Girl I Once Knew, didn't get the platform it deserved instead. But, oh well. That's a great song worth checking out. So this one, I'm up to 3 stars. I give it a light 3. It's an adequate record, maybe worth hearing if you're interested in the Beach Boys, for sure. And number 21, probably one I'm going to assume I have this highest out of everybody, 15 Big Ones. So also 3 stars. 3 years had passed since Holland, and well, the band had a credible live thing going on for a while there. Endless Summer came out, the greatest hits comp, became a massive seller, and it kind of put pressure to kind of go back to where they had been. Wanted to bring Brian back, kind of his name had real marquee value here, so the studio would have been big on bringing him there. You had kind of the fracturing of the group here. Dennis and Carl wanted to be more forward-looking, kind of like they had been. Mike and Al maybe being, more the band as a product for their sales. Brian, he was a hot commodity. He was struggling a lot with, his drug habits, psychiatric issues, wasn't operating at full capacity, wasn't overly motivated to be put in the producer's chair. But nevertheless, and this is probably why it gets where it is, he is the one making the calls here. And it was their both their best-selling and probably their most criticized up to this point for a long while. And it's uneven for sure. You'll notice that Dennis and Brian, their voices are suddenly very hoarse and unrecognizable. You have a track listing that's split between oldies and originals, eccentric production, definitely a disappointment going chronologically. They probably should have just put their best outtakes from the early 70s into an album and see how that went. But I do feel the way like that it's overhated. I like it more than I dislike it. Brian has his trademark production hand in here. It's usually pretty interesting and prevents the covers from sounding safe like a lot of the later albums. The safer ones are the worst ones. I don't like the Rock and Roll Music cover here. It's worse than the single version too. A Casual Look, Blueberry Hill, pretty anonymous. But then some of the others, you know, there's some flair to it. I like Palisades Park. Just Once in My Life it definitely has like the Love You kind of production on it, which I do like. So the originals, I don't think they're top shelf, but they're kind of quirky and charming. I think unlike Taavi, I do like Hadophonia. I think it's kind of neat. Back Home is fun. That they resurrected that one. So it's definitely not a great album, but I do think it's overhated, and I do like it for what it is. 3 stars.
All right. Yeah, so I don't know if I have any crazy takes in this next section, but we'll see. Number 25 for me, I'm gonna go with MIU album with a nice 2.5 stars. You know, it's okay. This era, you know, it's at least gonna usually sound pretty good. I like, you know, some of the songs. You know, Come Go With Me, that's a cool one. It's a good single. One of their last kind of hits, I guess. Some other ones are just kind of strange. Like obviously, Hey Little Tomboy, people talk about that one. That song's just bizarre. Melody's kind of interesting, but like, you know, it's just weird lyrics. And then number 24, I'm gonna go with 15 Big Ones. I'm gonna go up to 3 stars. I do think it's a little bit of a comeback, and I like a lot of the originals on here. I don't like many of the covers, but I like Hadophonia. I like It's Okay. I like TM Song. Those are all pretty cool. A lot of the covers don't do much for me. I don't know why they're there. I think I read a lot of it was kind of Brian practicing production with those covers and then getting into the originals, and then he decided to put a lot of the covers on the album. So yeah, I mean, some of it makes sense, but it's kind of cheesy, a little tacky. The cover of Rock and Roll Music, which I think was their biggest hit since Do It Again, I want to say, is just, it's lame. Considering all the great songs they had racked up in the interim, that's a little disappointing. But, you know, it's not terrible, so I can't give it a terrible score. Number 23, I'm gonna go with That's Why God Made the Radio. I think it's a good finale to their career, I guess. You know, it's a lot of it has sorry, a lot of it has that like Brian touch to it, that kind of ornateness, but it also I think is too technology-ish. There's a little too much kind of messing with the voices and too much kind of interference in that sense. I don't know if there was auto-tune, but there's definitely some kind of like auto-tune adjacent software on some of this. So I'm not a fan too much of that. Anything else? You know, obviously the title track's a standout. Summer's Gone's pretty good, but I'm mostly just putting it up here because I'm glad that the finale is something better than Stars and Stripes or Summer in Paradise. I'm gonna give it a 3 star. My number 22 is the first kind of classic era one. I'm gonna have Surfin' USA with a 3.5 star. Main reason is there's too many instrumentals, 5 of them. That's just way too many for a Beach Boys album. I want to hear real songs. I don't just want to hear like 12-bar surf instrumentals. Um, of the real songs, I like most of them. You know, Farmer's Daughter, I think is great. Lonely Sea, that one's awesome. Obviously, the single Surfin' USA, one of my favorites of theirs, probably like my favorite early song of theirs. Shutdown's really great. But yeah, just Uneven. I give it, 3.5 stars because there's too many songs that just shouldn't be here. They should have waited a little longer. So they had 12 real songs as opposed to, 7 songs. And then of the 7 songs, most of them are like a minute and 50 seconds. Like it's just not substantial enough music for me to be into it. So, and then my number 21, another classic period one, I'm going to go with Beach Boys Party. Again, 3.5 stars. I think it's good. It's just, you look at the other stuff they're doing around this time, it just does not stack up. I mean, you look at, they're already starting the sessions for Pet Sounds at the same time. They've just done California Girls and all the Today songs, Do You Want to Dance, all that great stuff. I just don't think this measures up. Mountain of Love's great. I love that one. Barbara Ann, probably my least favorite classic era single of theirs, but it's still a good song. Devoted to You is probably my favorite on the album. There's some other okay ones. I like Holly Gully. Alley Oop's cool, but it's just, it's all covers too. Like there's no originals. And during this period, it's like the Beatles putting out a covers album in place of Rubber Soul. It's like, what are you guys doing? Like, you guys are doing originals now and they're great. I don't see the point. So that's gonna be my number 21. That's my next crop of 5.
Great, great. Yeah, I guess I have to maybe disappoint some of the early Beach Boys fans with my next 5. But my 25 is the debut album, Surfing Safari, which these are Aidan's words, not mine, but this is crazy music. I think Aidan said in the chat when we listened to this. And yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. Mike Love sings a lot of these tunes, and yeah, I like the opener title song. That's cool. I think County Fair has a bit annoying vocals there, and Shagalak has a solid drum beat, and I like the hand claps. Little Girl, You're My Miss Americana. Dennis sounds very good. And I think the song feels more written. I don't know, is it a good way to say it? But some of these songs feel like almost like I don't know if children's songs a good way to put it, but kind of like kind of up there some ways. But especially like I think Heads You Win, Tails I Lose was a bit like that. I like the drum beat in that song. Summertime Blues, that's a big song that many people have covered. I don't think this is the definitive one of it, and I actually like the instrumental Moondog. I think it has a bit of a jazz influence to it. It's a solid one. Yeah, 409 is Aidan's title song. So 2.5 stars for it. It's fine, but I don't see myself listening to it that often. I think some of these are probably rated quite a bit higher than me, but I guess this is one of the starting to feel like I need a change. But I have some of these, what was it called? Hot Rod Rock albums next. So my 24 is Shutdown Volume 2. Yeah, it's I think of quite similar to the previous one, Little Deuce Cube. Fun is definitely fun. They got it right there. Great opener. Then there was some comedy sketch song, Cassius Love versus Sonny Wilson. I don't get this. Beach Boys seem to drop some of these odd songs into their albums, like they're either talking or laughing or I don't know. Here they're doing sketches. But Why Do Fools Why Do Fools Fall in Love is a great song. Louie Louie, another big one that many have covered, I feel like. Also not the best version of that. And there's like a drum solo too with Dennis drums. Kind of feels like this one has some highlights, but also fillers that I'm not gonna go back to. Maybe 2.5 still. 23 is the one before it. Little Deuce Cube. I found the title song pretty melodic and Ballad of Ole Betsy. I don't know, did I say it correctly, but it's kind of like an old-timey ballad. And yeah, it's sort of same. I don't know what's really the thing with surf music versus hot rod rock, or what was it called? But they kind of feel similar to me. Obviously, hot rod is about cars, I guess, but not surfing, but kind of similar. And I think they already did it better before it, I'd say. So 2.5. Now I get the 3 stars. My next one, 22. That's Why God Made the Radio. Last one, or newest one. Yeah, I have similar thoughts as you guys. Really techno. They definitely did some things to their vocals, and you can hear it. Not always, but sometimes you can definitely hear it, and it's kind of, yeah, not as big a fan of that. But there's some like I think it's kind of solid album all the way through. I don't think it's uh, it's kind of a good way to end a career, sort of, or their album making career. But it's not like ending with Summer in Paradise or something. Shelter, one of my favorite songs here, and I noticed there's Jim Peterick writing a couple of these songs from Survivor. It was a kind of a cool thing. And looks like John Bon Jovi too. I don't know how he got there, but I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. This is just a solid listen. Again, I do enjoy that a lot of these albums are short, even if I almost got a little burned out closer to end when the quality was a bit declining, I'd say. But yeah, that's 3 stars and 21. Yeah, I don't know where does normally this go. Maybe a lot higher. I don't know. But I've from 70s, Carl and the Passions. So tough. I don't know. I don't really feel like the new fellas here, Blondie Chaplin and Ricky Fattar. I don't think their voices are like super strong to me. I like their playing actually better than their vocals, but yeah, I find a lot of these songs are kind of like just not that interesting to me. He Come Down has this gospel feeling to it, kind of American gospel feel, pretty cool. I like Marcella. It's probably one of my favorites. Hold On Dear Brother is not one of my favorites, but and Oh This Is That is probably the most Beach Boys thanks to the harmonies. I feel like they weren't doing as many harmonies during this time. And this is just an odd thought, but I feel like sometimes Dennis in the 70s sounded like Peter Criss from Kiss. I don't know if that's anyone else here, but it's that sort of almost like damaged voice type of thing. I don't know what you call it, but just but I wrote it in the catalog. It's a cool song with the strings and all. But yeah, I don't know. Bruce is gone. I don't know how much. I don't remember how much Brian was in this album, but Blondie and Chaplin is kind of Blondie and Ricky are replacing kinda. So yeah, a bit boring, but there's some highlights still. 3 stars, and that's my last of the 5.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying on Peter Criss. I can see that, especially once his voice gets raspier.
Yeah. That time, yeah.
All right, so I'm into number 20 to 16 now. So my number 20 is the self-titled from 1985. And this is coming after a 5-year gap and basically their first proper 80s record. Dennis had died. They had a couple of one-off singles. Brian was kind of back under the Dr. Landy treatment. Carl and Mike had done some solo stuff. So they bring in Steve Levine of Culture Club to produce. And it definitely goes for that kind of 80s sound. And I think a lot of your appreciation of this one probably depend how you feel about that. Personally, I think it's probably the most hated album they did, like overhated, because I think it does sound like more coherent and professional, put together as a package than a lot of their stuff, a lot of their later period stuff. And I'd also say that their style fits a lot better with kind of the cheesies 80s sound than it did with like the overproduced kind of stringy late 70s. And I don't think it's a great record, and it's certainly not in the same league as their heyday, but there are a bunch of tracks here that I quite like. And I think overall, even the ones I can't take seriously, I enjoy them for what they are. And Get You Back is a decent throwback. She Believes in Love Again. It's kind of like an AOR ballad. And you know, if you like an AOR ballad, then maybe you'd like this. I think Carl sounds very good, and he contributes the best song on the album, Where I Belong. Probably my favorite of their 80s songs. The better songs do a fair bit of the heavy lifting for me here to make it a record I might even put on sometimes. But I really don't think it bottoms out like some of the other late period stuff. And I think it's just because it's more cohesive record. So that's a 3 stars for me. Number 19, I'm going with Shutdown Volume 2. So they kind of continue to churn out these early ones at a fast rate. And this one is probably the one that suffers the most from the filler that they put in to do that. We got the comedy sketch track, a drum solo track, and kind of a pointless Louie Louie cover. I think they had better songs in the vault that they could have pulled, like I Do or Back Home. I actually do kind of like the semi-title track instrumental for what it is. It's called Volume 2 because Capitol released a comp featuring a couple of Beach Boys songs and a few other artists. It's a bit of a strange choice to call it that, but I guess it works when you have the Stars and Stripes Volume 1 and Shutdown Volume 2, so it completes the package there. On the other side of the coin, though, for this one, we have some of their best stuff up to that point. Don't Worry Baby, Warmth of the Sun, really great. Show Brian at peak vocal performance. The best songs of any record I've talked about so far are those. Keep an Eye on Summer, Fun, 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 also strong. So I think this is just a classic example of where you don't need the album. you're better off picking and choosing individual tracks. But for its best stuff, it gets a 3. If it was up to me, the new songs from Little Deuce Coupe could have just been put here, and you'd have a much stronger album for both of them. And speaking of which, number 18 is Little Deuce Coupe. And this one takes 4 tracks from the previous 3 albums. And this is probably the biggest victim to the insane release schedule. It came out like less than a month after Surfer Girl. So there's only 8 new songs. And I don't think they're better than most of the repeats. But you can still hear development in the new stuff. Ballad of Old Betsy and Spirit of America, very full-sounding, harmony-laden songs. Custom Machine has like a neat, weird chord change in it. That's a quality that I look for in Brian's songwriting as he went along. It's also somewhat of a car-themed concept album, which is maybe how I give it more of a pass for reusing the songs, because that's like, it's not an art form as so much as a collection of similar ideas that they're going for here. And it strikes me as a bit of a record company thing. Car songs now supplant surf in their identity here. I would say it kind of trades the highs of Surfin' USA for a better flow. I've kind of wavered back and forth on those two over the years. Today, I'm putting it at the bottom of the 363 records because I think it could probably use one more banger of a single or something to put it over the top. Maybe if I like Be True to Your School as a single more or something. I don't know. Number 17, I have the Beach Boys Christmas album. They keep turning the records at a steady pace. Third one of the year of 64. 5 originals and 7 standards. The originals more or less follow kind of their usual style of the time. Little Saint Nick was a single from the year before, I believe. It's become kind of a standard. I sometimes hear the She and Him cover of Christmas Day. That's another original that probably make up my top 2 of the new songs. And for the standards, they go for more of a traditional orchestration rather than following the Spectre wall of sound. I think it works better on some tracks more than others. Wouldn't really call a lot of these definitive versions of their songs, but they're light and easy. We Three Kings is probably my favorite of the traditional Christmas songs because I think it's just a really good song and it sounds great with their harmonies. That's another 3 stars for me. And then number 16 is Surfin' USA, which I edged out over a Little Deuce Coupe. Right away, I think you get a fuller sound compared to the debut, especially on the harmonies. Some fun songs. Title track is a great reworking of Sweet Little 16. Shut Down is solid. Farmer's Daughter and Lonely Sea are nice deep cuts. Again, show development in Brian's songwriting. The 5 instrumentals is excessive. It's the closest you'll probably get to them trying to be a traditional surf rock group, but I don't think they really have the playing chops at this point to kind of compete with the best of those. They're fine on their own, but a little samey, and for a vocal group who had nice harmony, I just wanted more of that side of it. So first half is overall pretty strong, highlights enough for me to just get into 3.5 territory to kind of close out the back half of the catalog.
Okay, my next crop of albums, I'm not sure how many crazy opinions I've got here. My number 20, I've got LA Light Album. I think it's uneven, but it's one of the last albums where I think there's a lot of good material. You know, you've got the lead single, Good Timin', that's great. The 2 Dennis songs, I guess they're also on Bamboo, but you know, I like having them here. I think they, you know, he kind of saves the album a little bit, but not enough to get it super high. I'm keeping it at like a 3.5. You know, I don't think it's amazing, but I do think it's one of their last relatively consistently strong albums. My number 19, I've got Surfin' Safari, the debut. I have it a little bit above Surfin' USA because I think there's a little bit more consistently good material here. It's got, you know, a lot of you know, his first album, and it's got, 9 out of 12 original songs. That's pretty cool. A lot of them are kind of corny. I'm okay with that though. Like a lot of them have strong melodies and they're usually pretty well written, even though the arrangements are thin, the playing is just okay, but as songs they're good. So I give it props for that. And then my next one, number 18, the Christmas album. It's good, but it's a Christmas album. So I like that there's a lot of original songs on the first side. I like the sound of it. You have that traditional, like warm orchestration. That's very nice. And it sounds very good, but just doesn't quite measure up to like, I don't know, some of their other stuff from even around this time. They're also doing like All Summer Long and that kind of thing around now. But I especially I like The Man with All the Toys. Little Saint Nick's pretty good. So yeah. And then that's gonna be my last 3.5. And then moving up to Carl and the Passions, So Tough, which is my number 17. I think it's a good album. I think it is their weakest of that whole like smiley smile through Holland kind of commercial downturn period where they still had a lot of original material. I think it's their weakest of that era. A lot of the songs are good, I especially Marcella's definitely my favorite. I love the extended coda. They seem to do that a lot, like on that and Funky Pretty. That would seem to be a big thing for them around that time. So I really like that. But yeah, I just don't think the album's as even as either the album preceding or following it. So yeah, I'm gonna go with a 4-star for that. And then my last 4-star, or no, my last of this section, not my last 4-star, is gonna be Little Deuce Coupe at number 16. Kind of a grab bag of various material. They've got some old, they've got 4 songs that were already on earlier albums. That kind of has to drop the rating a little bit, too much of a retread. But there's obviously great songs here, especially the best songs are the ones carried over from earlier albums, like Our Car Club and 409, Shut Down, Little Deuce Coupe, those 4. The 2 new songs that I like the most, I really like Cherry Cherry Coupe. I think it's got a cool melody. They used the same one on Sail, what's it called? One of their early outtakes. It was like Land Ahoy. That's the one. And so that's cool. And then I also really like Spirit of America. A Young Man Is Gone is cool, but if I'm hearing them do Their Hearts Were Full of Spring, I'd rather listen to it live in like 67 or the 68 London show or something like that. So overall, yeah, 4 stars. It's not amazing, but there are individual amazing moments. So that's my last of this section.
Yeah, I don't know. Will I have some crazy takes in this section? Maybe, maybe not. But my number 20 is the Christmas album, 1964. And there I was sitting down and listening a Christmas album in November. But luckily for me, there was a little bit of snow on the ground. Yeah, it's very much a lot of snow here in Finland. But yeah, I have to be honest, I actually prefer the traditional Christmas songs to the originals here. I'm not sure if it's a bit like of the fact that I know those traditionals, not these versions, but in some other form. So there's like a bit of nostalgia coming there, kinda. So, and I think nostalgia is a big part of Christmas. And yeah, We Three Kings of Orient has some on-point harmonies there. Santa Claus is Coming to Town classic song. Great drums and horns in that one. Then there was some spoken word thing. I don't know how to say it. Old Lang Syne. I don't know. It was an odd one, but yeah, Frosty the Snowman is a fun one. But Christmas albums are tough always because they're like I don't really listen to Christmas music, so it's like good for a couple of days in the year for me. So that was 3 stars. Next one is Surfing USA, and I'm confused by the instrumentals. Like, I don't know who comes to listen to instrumentals when you have the big harmonies available and all, but they're kind of fun still. Not my preferred Beach Boys, and Surfing USA, one of maybe my favorite song. The sound feels very big, and with Farmer's Daughter, I knew the Fleetwood Mac live cover first, and but the damn solid tune. Really enjoyed. Lonely Sea is a very lovely ballad, actually. Surprised me quite a bit. And Lana has a very good vocal, and Finders Keepers makes me laugh. And yeah, I think it's mostly due to that. Was there like 5 instrumentals, or I don't know how many, or am I? But that's a lot of instrumentals for one Beach Boys album. So yeah, 3 stars. Then I have LA Light Album from 1979, and yeah, I was there's again very uneven to me. Songs I enjoyed are Good Timing, the opener, Love Surrounds Me. The previous song also was a Dennis vocal song, and I was a bit iffy about that song and maybe the voice, but then Love Surrounds Me comes, and I'm like Dennis kicked me in the mouth, basically. That was a cool performance by Dennis. And a cool song. I might be the only one who likes the 10 or 11-minute disco number here, but I was like, this sounds a bit familiar, but I didn't even realize this from Wild Honey, this song originally. I was just vibing with it. It's pretty funky. But yeah, but then there's like Going South, I think is basically a snooze fest for me, and Shorting in Bread is kind of strange, a filler song to me. I think that there's like bluesy rock guitar wails that are kind of cool. So, but yeah, I'd say 3 stars still for that, but I'm actually going to 3.5 now. So these are all good albums. My next one is an early one, Surfer Girl, and Brian Wilson producing the whole thing. It's definitely a cool factor, and I don't personally see too many big differences to previous, maybe Surfing USA, except there was less instrumentals, and obviously some elements are added, like the string section and the use of Wrecking Crew session players. And there's some great songs. Even I might even think that Surfing USA, some of my highlights might be even higher than some of these. But I think this is a better listen overall. Surfer Girl is a solid pop number, and Surfer Moon is a Brian Wilson ballad. I definitely like. Maybe Brian Wilson is my favorite vocalist of the band, and well, writer too, and producer, whatever title you can give him. And yeah, that ballad has a bit of this old-timey feel, and then there's like a instrumental, the rocking surfer. It's quite typical surf rock to me. Sounds like not my preferred Beach Boys again. In My Room, very well done harmonies. I think that's a beloved song. And yeah, there's some like Your Summer Dream is a pretty ballad, and more instrumentals like Boogie Boogie. But yeah, 3.5. It's a good album. And I have to go to 70s, which means I need to find the album, but it's MYU album from 1978. I don't know why I sometimes notice drums on Beach Boys albums super well, even if I listen to a lot of drums when I'm listening to music. But here I was very pleasantly surprised by Mike Kowalski's drumming. I think some of his hi-hat work on this album is really nice. Especially on the Hey Little Tomboy, which the lyrics are, let's not even go there, but I like the drums at least. And Sweet Sunday Kinda Love has great harmonies, and Bells of Paris has almost a spoken word type of thing. I don't remember, was it Mike Love, but usually when it's Mike Love, it might go into the spoken word thing, and don't do it. But My Diane, I think, is kind of an epic song. There's like a kind of a slow tempo to the song, which kind of makes it more epic to me. It's I don't know is it 4-on-4 or what, but yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. And yeah, it's just kind of fun album. They're like trying super hard, but the songs are coming pretty well. It's not an artistic statement, but I don't mind this. 3.5 stars. That was my number 16, yeah. So back to Andrew.
Cool. Yeah, I thought that one might appeal to you, some of the stuff there for that MIU. I am about to get into, I think I have maybe a couple more, and then we're just talking about all 4 stars and up. So those are great albums to me. So we'll kick it off with number 15, Carl and the Passions, So Tough, 3.5 stars. This was quite a turn in sound for the band. Probably the closest they got to being like a roots rock band. And around the time that their live act really started to build into its strongest form, there's only 8 songs and they're longer than average, so it's different than the usual kind of like economical pop songwriting that the Beach Boys were doing. Also not very cohesive at all. You can basically sum it up as like 2 songs a piece to different camps, with Carl kind of linking all of them. There's Bruce leaving, Carl bringing in Blondie and Ricky, whose band was on their record label. Their 2 songs are probably more in line with like the band or Crosby, Stills and Nash or something. You don't hear Brian very much on this record, but he does contribute a couple of rockers. Close to the end, you get a couple of orchestral ballads from Dennis. Alan might collaborate with Brian on a gospel song, and then with Carl on All This Is That, which is probably, like Taavi said, probably the most in line with the Beach Boys sound. On some of the songs, I think there's something with the mixing that could be improved, which I can't say about a lot of the material from this era. Maybe it's the vocals. Sometimes they're a bit pushed to the back, especially on the Blondie and Ricky songs. I don't know. So I think there's something going on there that maybe prevents them from getting to their full potential, and there's also a bit of an identity crisis going on. At the end of the day, though, the material is quite good. I wouldn't say it reaches the heights of their other from this kind of era, but I do at least like everything here. I think the opener, You Need a Mess of Help to Stand Alone, really rocks. I love that one. It's a look into them trying something different, not really blowing the doors off, but I guess giving us a taste of what other directions they could have explored instead of eventually going in the nostalgia route. Number 14, I have Surfer Girl, my last 3.5 stars. You get some more progression of their sound. It kind of establishes them firmly as a vocal group here. Harmonies were already great at this point, and they blend nicely together. You get more lead trading, which is something that became more of a staple for them. The title track, Little Deuce Coupe, In My Room, all early classics. Say Catch a Wave and Hawaii are almost like quasi-hits in their own right. Your Summer Dream is a nice ballad. Definitely fewer instrumentals. And it's before you get those spoken word tracks, so it's kind of the sweet spot between those two kind of things that were kind of weighing some of the other albums down from this period, and that's probably why I have the highest out of this early era. I don't love every track here. Boogie Woody is pretty forgettable, but I do think the bigger songs stand out above the other album cuts. At the end of the day, though, these early ones are very super easy listens, and I think this is probably the best representation of the early days, depending on where you classify the cutoff of the early days. So well worth a listen for somebody looking for kind of a solid vocal surf record. My number 13 is Wild Honey. So 3 months after Smiley Smile, and it kind of has more lo-fi production quality like that one had. I guess they're doing it at Brian's house. It's an early example of a high-profile act moving away from the kind of the psychedelia into something more back to basics. But instead of retreating to their early sounds, they kind of go for more of like a stripped-down R&B, blue-eyed soul record, and I think it's quite neat standing alone in that, like a cooling off after the stresses of going bigger and bigger. They just kind of go this way. I do enjoy Brian's lush arrangements more, and I can see how like this by comparison feels less substantial, but it does work for the style they're going for. And contrary to the narrative, Brian is still leading the way here. And we also get Carl breaking out as a vocalist. We'd had huge spotlights before, but here he's all over this one and kind of established himself as kind of the best singer of this era of the band. Everything here is good, but my favorites include the title track, Let the Wind Blow, especially Darlin', the hit single. Carl's voice in that song is probably what I would most credit to getting me into the group and exploring their different catalogs. So it's very important in that regard for me. There's some great stuff that was being worked on around these sessions too, like Cool Cool Water and Can't Wait Too Long. So there was some more experimentation going on behind the scenes. It's also around the time they started leaving a lot of these gems on the cutting room floor, like multiple albums worth of outtakes. But I'd say there aren't as many highs as some of the other kind of classic run albums for me. That's why it's the lowest out of this crop, but it's still a great album to me, 4 stars. Number 12 is All Summer Long, which I also have at 4 stars. I'd probably consider it their first great record, and it's the opening 5 tracks that is the kind of run that gets it there. It stands above here, like the harmonies are so great on this record, probably about as pristine as they ever got. You have a little bit of the surfing car themes. The summer theme is obviously front and center, but here they're sort of to move a bit forth into something more lush. I Get Around, the title track, really great 1-2 punch to kick it off. Little Honda is a cool rocker. We'll Run Away is like a precursor to the ballads that were coming in the future albums. There are good songs throughout. It's a little marred by having the spoken word track again, and another kind of generic instrumental. It's a bit of a shame they stuck to the formula once the material was well past it, but I think everything else here is too strong to ignore, and I don't find it as disruptive as in some of the other cases. It's basically the pinnacle of their Fun in the Sundays, and or you could see it as a bridge between that and the following stuff. Maybe it's both, I don't know. And lastly, to close out this run of 5, I have Summer Days and Summer Nights, 4 stars. As the title kind of indicates, it's going a little bit more back into the earlier themes than Today did. But I don't think it's as simple as a step backwards. It's a summer record, and it's more about embracing a sunshine pop sound. And you could make the case that maybe the music has outgrown some of the lyrics, which I might argue, but thankfully I'm more about the music. And the arrangements here are at least on par with Today. And it also might be one of the most diverse sounds, song to song, up to this point. Each one kind of has their own like little blend to it, and it makes for a really enjoyable listen. On these 65 records, we're seeing a bit more confidence to spread the leads around. That's a nice quality that they kind of carried most of their career from there. I don't think it's a perfect record. I think like the start and the close to the record are not the strongest. Don't really like Amusements Park USA that much. Bugged Up My Old Man is revealing, but not really a great song. Could probably benefit from some sequencing changes and including some other outtakes, but it's still a really fun record. Most of it is just great mid-60s pop, and there's a really excellent middle stretch of the record. Everyone knows California Girl and Help Me Rhonda, but you also get Then I Kissed Her, which is very sweet Crystal's cover. Girl Don't Tell Me is very Beatlesque, and Let Him Run Wild is like a proto-Pet Sounds ballad, so lots to recommend on this one, and it just misses out on the top 10.
Okay, I've got, before we get to my top 10, number 15, I've got Surfer Girl, 4 stars. The first one produced entirely by Brian. Just a ton of great songs. Hawaii is amazing. Surfer Girl, In My Room, Little Deuce Coupe. There's just so many great songs on here. There's a lot that kind of veer towards filler, I think, but it doesn't matter when you have such a strong offering, I think, at kind of the top line. Number 14, I've got Shutdown Volume 2, which is kind of like the Surfer Girl problem magnified to massive proportions, and that the good stuff is even better and the bad stuff is like even more, it makes no sense and embarrassing and stuff. So I'm keeping it at 4 stars because it's like the perfect middle ground, because on one hand, an album with Don't Worry Baby, Fun, 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 and The Warmth of the Sun, you'd think that deserves to be like a 5-star automatically, and then you realize like, yeah, but an album with Shutdown Part 2 and Cassius Love versus Sonny Wilson kind of deserves to be like a 3 or 2.5 off the bat. So 4 is the middle ground, because the gap between this is definitely one of the biggest gaps between best and worst song on an album ever, I think. Yeah, it's staggering. Number 13, moving up to 4.5, I have got Holland, which is an album I really like, and doing it for the 73 deep dive has kind of moved it up even more for me. I think it used to be more of like a 4 or something like that. But yeah, I really enjoy it. For me, the highlight, which may be kind of controversial, is the California Saga, written by Mike and Al. That's the part of the album that I love the most. But also there's great stuff from everyone. Sail on Sailor, Funky Pretty, and The Traitor are probably my other 3 big favorites from this album. But I love that it's more cinematic, it's more kind of adult than a lot of their earlier stuff. I love that, like, especially with the California Saga, it's a revisit of surf music, but with a much more adult and kind of, again, it's much more like a movie and very kind of epic. It almost reminds me in some places. I almost get like Quadrophenia vibes with all of the sound effects and stuff like that. So that's a great thing for me. So I'm gonna give it 4.5. And then my number 12, which I'm also gonna go 4.5, the very last 4.5, and then I'm gonna have 11 5 stars, which may be predictable, but I'm gonna go with Summer Days and Summer Nights. That's gonna be my number 12. A great collection of songs here. I used to even have it above Today. I changed that because I think, although I would give the arrangements and production maybe a mild edge, I think the songwriting isn't quite as great as it is from cover to cover on Beach Boys Today. Still great, great, great album with California Girls, Let 'Em Run Wild, Help Me Rhonda, Girl Don't Tell Me, Salt Lake City. There's just so many great songs. It's a very high 4.5. It's almost in 5 territory, but 12 was pushing it. 11 is a lot, but 12 maybe too many. At number 11, I'm gonna have Beach Boys Love You. I think it's such a unique album, and I really enjoy almost all of it. I think Brian is doing something so personal across the whole album. It's the second album ever where he writes every song. That works great, or I think third actually. But it's just a great statement of an album. All of the individual songs I love. I think my favorite Solar System, that kind of oddball weirdness is so cool for me. And it's so it's funny, but also super poignant, super kind of heart-wrenching. And a lot of the songs are like that. Like, I'll Bet He's Nice, Good Time, The Night Was So Young, Let's Put Our Hearts Together. There's so many songs that are both funny, but also really touching. And then the few songs that aren't really emotional for me, the ones that are just kind of funny, they're still cool, like Johnny Carson and stuff like that, honking down the gosh darn highway. Yeah. So yeah, that's my run of 15 through 11.
I knew there was gonna be a lot of 5 stars, but I didn't know it go above, above or below top 10. I don't know how to say it, but but nice, cool. Yeah, I guess my 15, I had it a little higher, but I started to question myself because this is definitely a kind of an odd album. My number 15 is Beach Boys Party from 1965. And yeah, when I listened to this, I thought it was a kind of a work surprisingly well, given that it's sort of like this listening to a sort of a party, but just it hard to rank because it's kind of like almost with all the laughing, it's kind of, I don't know, would it be like something I would listen always? Would I prefer listening to these versions with all the talking and stuff? But I guess I kind of rate it because I 2.5 because I thought it was surprisingly well made sort of fake party and with all the things, and it has bongos. Everyone loves bongos. I think Hal Blaine is playing bongos, like they hired Hal Blaine to play bongos. That's pretty funny for me. But yeah, it's definitely a odd but kind of cool chorus album from the 60s. I don't think I've really listened to this style of music where it's sort of to be like a party in studio type of thing. But yeah, 3.5. Then I have my last 80s album, At Last, the Beach Boys, self-titled. Yeah, I'm the 80s guy, and I like 80s productions too. And this is a fun album. Enjoyable listen. California Calling is fun, nostalgia trip. Ringo is playing the drums there. I like the vocals on I'm So Lonely. Where I Belong has lovely harmonies, and I Do Love You has Stevie Wonder playing most of the instruments here, and it's a Stevie Wonder original, and I can definitely hear Stevie singing this. Yeah, it's just a matter of time. There's harmonica, not played by Stevie, which is forbidden to me. The song is okay. I don't know. My Ego is a bonus track that was on the album. I listened to that too, even if I don't kind of skip it on the album rating. But it's a pretty fun synth number. I kind of wish it would be on the album, to be honest. It's definitely a pretty fun 80s album, the most 80s album probably. Maybe I don't know about Still Cruising, but it's sort of a compilation to me almost. This is the full studio release. 3.5 stars for the self-titled Beach Boys album. Then I have a 60s album, All Summer Long here, which is 1964. Maybe my favorite production so far in this discography. I Get Around is awesome, basically. Awesome harmonies and production. Can't go wrong. All Summer Long, as the title mentions, it's very summery. Enjoy the summery vibes. Yeah, there's a little instrumental too, Carl's Big Chance, which is kind of meh. Then Do You Remember? I kind of wish it would have someone to have that can carry like this rocker maybe better than Mike Love does. I'm sorry, Mikey, but maybe you're not the guy for it. Girls on the Beach, it's a pretty song. I definitely want to be on that beach too. And we get the hot rod rock with driving, and then there's the usual Beach Boys question marks are our favorite recording sessions, which is a big why to me. I don't get that song at all. And with Don't Back Down, you just gotta love Brian. Great song. Yeah, good album. 3.5 stars. Then the album I kind of have tough time deciding on, and it's The Beach Boys Love You from 1977. I like the big sound. I like the synths are kind of fun. I forgot what the synth was. It was some Odyssey, I want to say, or Odyssey. I think ABBA used them, and some of these 70s bands. Sounds very cool. And yeah, this like almost like a 80s synth pop sort of thing, but it's still in the 70s, and it's not, I guess, not that 80s synth pop still, but it's definitely a cool one. But maybe some album that needs a bit more time with me to grow on. I think Johnny Carson is a fun song about Johnny Carson, and it's just sort of wacky and cool at the same time. I feel this song. Airplane is fun. I like the big drums on Roller Skating Child, and I didn't really like Love Is a Woman, but this is definitely a cool album, but it could go higher on some day. It's still 3.5 stars for me. Number 11 is an album that I don't think has come up yet. I don't know. It's Friends from 1968. it has some similarities to Wild Honey, I guess, in a way. Maybe in the production style or the length, but otherwise it's pretty different. Even the album cover has a different contrast to it. And oh wait, I said wrong. I meant to say that even the album cover has some similar to the White Honey one, but the songs are totally different. They dropped the R&B and soul vibes, and they picked more, I'd say, folkier approach maybe, but still in the pop vein. I'd say not as fun as White Honey to me. Maybe more harmony vocals though. It starts with Meant for You, which was really short. It's like, I think that was less than a minute. Kind of surprised me. Just went out so quickly. But like the World, I enjoy it, but it kind of fades out a bit awkwardly to me. And Be Here in the Morning is kind of folky and it has some cool moments like the short instrumental middle, but it's not the most interesting song to me, but still great vocals. Be Still is a bit boring to me. It's kind of plain to me to transcend. This is a tough word. Transcendental, I don't know, meditation. Kind of fun. It's a bit odd vocals, but enjoy the sax solo on it. But yeah, it's just this sort of short little album. It's good, but definitely enjoy Wild Honey a lot more. So still at a 3.5, but I'm gonna go to 4 stars really soon.
Number 10, yeah. I was kind of hoping that you liked the self-titled a bit, so I'm glad that worked out.
Yeah.
So my number 10 is Smiley Smile, 4 stars. And considering it's coming after Pet Sounds, a very considerable shift from their discography, and kind of comes on the heels of the collapse of Smile, Rises from the Ashes. Half the songs are still connected to it, and some even use fragments from those sessions. The real thing that stands out here is the decision to go with kind of this more lo-fi approach outside of the Good Vibration single and most of Heroes and Villains. Those songs just kind of stand out as their own thing, but I actually kind of like how they open each side before we settle into this weirder, more stripped down psychedelic arrangement. And it's a bit of a polarizing record for people wanting to see Brian continue to, flourish in music history. And maybe a little surprising why this particular course was chosen, especially in using a bunch of the Smile songs anyways. But the changes that they make are almost so far removed that they exist nicely as their own thing. It's almost like a cross between Smile and the thought process that went into Beach Boys Party or something. There's a lot of beauty in this style. The vocal arrangements are still incredible. Still great songs at their core, interspersed with like these charming musical fragments. It's definitely not short of having an identity. The understating arrangements, they're kind of cool and creepy with that organ, especially on wind chimes. It took me a while to get used to it, but I think it's a pretty great album in its own right. And this is kind of the point where the band was becoming underappreciated in their day and reevaluated later, and that's the era that brought me in as a fan. So definitely a lot to appreciate about this one.
Okay, my number 10, I'm going to be going with Wild Honey from 67. And it's kind of, I was debating this and the album I'm putting at number 9. I won't say what it is yet, but for me, this one came out a little bit below because I think it's more consistently great, but the album I have at number 9 has higher highs for me, which put it a bit higher. But this is a great album, I love the title track. I love Aren't You Glad? I love I love Darlin', and Here Comes the Night, Let the Wind Blow. Just so many classic songs. There's so much musical invention here. It's clear that Brian's still totally kind of running the show. I think he wrote 9 of the 11 songs, and the other 2 are, one is a cover and one's by the other members. So still very much his project, kind of one of the last albums where you get that sense on every track. And especially, which is cool for me, the singles were very, very popular. Probably their last major hits besides a couple of the 2020 ones for a while. So yeah, it's an album that is a little bit on the downturn, but it's still got so many great songs, and also a lot of big hits and a lot of hidden gems. So I dig this one a lot.
Nice. I think both of you have dropped Wild Honey to the mix now. I won't do it yet. I'm going to 70s with Holland next. And yeah, I wasn't that big of a fan of the previous one, So Tough. But I think overall, like, songs here are better. Favorite song is Only With You, I'd say. I think it's a very heartfelt ballad. It's simple yet beautiful song. And I like well, there's like the 3-piece saga, California saga. I think my favorite part is the third one, California. I think that's like a 60s throwback style. It's fun, and I'm all for it, for the 60s throwback thing. But the second part is like this speaks of eagles, and it's like a spoken word. I don't know, is it again Mike Love, but yeah. Mike Love seems to always do the spoken word thing. But yeah, it was an odd to listen to, and I just kept on smiling, even if sometimes I was in pain. But Funky Pretty is pretty solid. Sail on Sailor. I think it was a hit. I think it's catchy, but Blondie Japanese vocals to me isn't that interesting. But sorry, Blondie. But and they kept on again saying this. There's a lot of repeat in the end, but I like it overall. Leaving This Town has this cool synth solo in it. Otherwise, I don't know if it's that interesting, but yeah, it's a cool album. It's not one of my top 73 albums. It's a big year for me. But yeah, even if I sometimes think some of the songs are a bit, there's at least some cool moments to the songs that I appreciate. So still 3.5 for Holland. Yeah.
Right. So number 9, I guess no one's talked about this one yet, 2020. And it was actually rose even a little bit for me. So I used to have it at 4 stars, but going up to 4.5 now. So with Brian kind of taking a step back, actually being hospitalized briefly around this time, kind of kicks off the more democratic period for the band. And so this is where you get other members taking more control of the group, especially the other 2 Wilson brothers. This one is not a very cohesive record, really. Probably the least cohesive they'd had in a while. There are a bunch of different directions happening at once between the different styles. A couple of cover songs, tracks that date back a few years. So it's a little bit cobbled together in a way, but that's also what helps it stand out, because it trades in the homespun production sound of the past few records with something a little more polished. And it has the benefit of most of the material being very strong, and that's what counts the most. It's a pretty great pop rock record all around. all in one place. You get a vocal surf throwback, brill building pop, a blues rock song, lounge music, baroque pop, a folk cover. So it might not be the ideal place for these all to exist, but we get also 2 amazing Smile tracks finished and finding a home here. And that kind of closes with an exclamation point. I've always loved the song Time to Get Alone, a Brian song that he'd worked on for a couple of years. Be With Me gives us a taste of Dennis's kind of sunflower style. And I Can Hear Music is, definitely one of their best covers ever. Carl has an exceptional lead on that one. And these are the kinds of like diverse hidden gems that made discovering this period a real delight. It was somewhat successful commercially too, to kind of close off their decade with a couple of kind of minor hits, but still underrated in the grand scheme of things by the public, and a lot of cool songs to pull out from this one.
Okay. My number 9, I alluded to this being one above Wild Honey earlier. I'm going to go with Smiley Smile. Kind of a grab bag of Smile stuff, new songs, kind of reworked stuff. Obviously, the 2 big things here, Good Vibrations and Heroes and Villains, which are totally essentials as far as I'm concerned. Those are just great songs. The modular recording, psychedelic approach really works. They have a very different approach to a lot of the other stuff they were doing around this period. I don't remember. I read a review of this album that said, like, I don't remember who wrote it, but that one of the reasons they think they're successful is that they kind of blend the upbeat, like poppy Beach Boys with the more ballad and downbeat kind of side of them. So they kind of have both. I agree with that, And then the other songs, Vegetables, it's a cool one, very strange. Getting Hungry is a really interesting single, and there's some cool live versions of that from around the same time. But yeah, overall, and there's some songs that I still go back and forth on whether or not I like this version or the Smile version of Wind Chimes more. I think they're both great. They have such different like central hooks that it's kind of hard for me to just pick one. But yeah, overall, it's an album that I think is either, whenever people talk about it, it's either pretty underrated or pretty overrated. Like, because some people will put it, in the very top echelon, which I don't think is quite true outside of a couple songs. And some people will name it, one of their worst of the whole 60s, which I also think is crazy. So, it's one where the best stuff really raises it above, without the 2 big hits. I'd probably give it a pretty high 4 stars, but nowhere near as high on the list as it is here. But as it is, number 9, it's going to be Smiley Smile.
I agree, but it's my number 9, Smiley Smile, but with a quite different star rating, but it's okay. Yeah, I guess this feels like sort of a compromise album in a way, because Smile project kind of went under ice, and Beach Boys, I guess, had to release something, and so they do release quite a few Smile songs here. But yeah, it's a bit of a, like what Aidan said, some obvious highlights and some more experiments kind of here. Some works better than others maybe, but yeah, Heroes and Villains, song that has grown on me a lot. I think the first time I heard it, I was a bit spooked by the transitions. That's really just come out of nowhere to me. But when you're listening now, it's like very cool and all. But Vegetables is an interesting one. If you don't remember anything from this video, just remember to eat your vegetables. It's the most valuable thing you need to know. But she's going bald is very odd. Definitely, yeah, it's definitely something. And Real Bad is more low key, and Good Vibrations is a classic that we all know and love. Getting Hungry, I like the chorus a lot, the instrumental behind it, and I'm a bit disappointed with the version of Wonderful. There's some sort of chatting on it. It's kind of doesn't fit. It's a disappointing version of the Great Smile version. But yeah, it's close to 4 stars, and still this is my last 3.5. But yeah, I don't think it's a bit uneven to me to listen to. But there's the two very big highlights are one of their best. Yeah. So yeah, my number 9, Smiley Smile.
I'm up to 8, and I'm going with Friends, also at 4.5. I've always been quite partial to this one. So, like Smiley Smile and Wild Honey were like somewhat disappointments commercially. They did see some modest success. This one was a total flop, and probably an indication of their waning popularity in the US. It's not really about giving the people at the time what they wanted, but I do love it. Instead, it's kind of this easygoing, sunny, sometimes jazzy listen, probably the closest they got to like a folk pop record, and the kind of thing that I could easily see inspiring indie artists much later. Like its two predecessors, the arrangements are not super elaborate, but I think they sound prettier here. You get a lot of vocal turns from different members, and this might be the exact moment, maybe, I'm putting it out there, where everybody is vocally in top form. I think the ones who kind of came on later, they're reaching their prime, and then Brian, like, he's still really great here. And so records like this are like super short and a breeze. It's notable for being the last one probably where Brian does feel fully in charge until 15 Big Ones era. And I think he's still a major X factor pretty much every record, but this shift does open up a new chapter. So it is kind of nice to hear him come up with like a little bit more of a produced record, kind of with him at the helm in the classic 60s era. You do get Dennis getting his feet wet a bit, and he'll quickly become a big player. I love most of the songs here, even if some of them are kind of slight tracks. But if I had to name highlights, it would be the title track, Busy Doing Nothing, that dabbles into bossa nova, and Little Bird, which I think is a really awesome song.
Yeah, I am going to talk about that one too right now. It's my number 8. I just realized I put the whole Smiley Smile Wild Honey Friends run right next to each other, which, yeah, I guess that kind of sums up how I feel about those albums. I love all of them, and they're kind of very similar for me in terms of my approach to them. I think this one gets to the top spot among those 3 because I do think it's kind of the most internally cohesive. You've got a ton of great songs, all of which really mesh and fit together. Meant for You, Friends, Little Bird, Busy Doing Nothing, Wake the World, a ton of great songs, and they all flow in and out so well. Usually, they suffer from the best problem a song can have, which is that it's too short. A lot of these songs are very short, but they're so good, I don't really care that much. Just great stuff. And it is the first album I think of ever by the Beach Boys to not have any top 40 hits on it. So that's kind of sad. It's where their commercial downturn, I guess, really kicks in. But despite all that, they put together a lot of great songs. You can really see the transcendental meditation vibe with Mike had just been on the Maharishi's retreat in wherever the Rishikesh, that's the city. So he gets songs like Annalie the Healer and Meant for You, which I think he wrote most of. And then Dennis with Little Bird and Be Still. Those are great ones. Brian's still doing a lot, but with a lot more co-writes. This is kind of him, I guess, giving up the reins a bit. So yeah, a lot of stuff going on with this album, with the group, but it kind of all coalesces into a very Zen-like experience, which it's a bit like, I guess, Notorious Bird Brothers, where there was so much turmoil with the group, but still when you listen to that album, it sounds cohesive and that there wasn't all that drama happening.
Yeah, nice. You two were talking about Friends. I'm gonna talk about Summer Days and Summer Nights. And yeah, 4 stars. So I think it's a slight disappointment to the previous one, which I haven't talked yet. But there's still some great Beach Boys numbers here, including California Girls, which I totally love it. I even enjoyed the David Lee Roth cover, which is definitely something from the 80s. But then Let Him Run Wild has some fantastic vocals by Brian Wilson. And then, well, Girl from New York City, it's very catchy. And Help Me Rhonda, I personally prefer the Today Help Me Rhonda. I guess they're kind of similar, but I just maybe get more used to that version. But there's an a cappella ending, which is kind of cool. I'm not the biggest a cappella fan, but their harmonies are awesome. And yeah, some slightly pointless instrumental Summer Means New Love, but yeah, it's totally a very good listen, and that's the most important thing. And yeah, 4 stars for Summer Days and Summer Nights.
All right, everyone into 4-star and above territory now. I'm still at 4.5, and my number 7 is Holland. So continuing with the lineup from Carl and the Passions, but I would say it improves on that formula in just about every way. They picked up and left for Holland, put this one together, and despite the expense to do that, I think it pays off in terms of what you get. There's a more united sound to this record. It's basically like a pop rock record with an Americana tinge. Different members collaborating and singing each other's songs. I think Blondie and Ricky blended much better on this one. The record sounds better, the songs better. Even the spoken word, Beaks of Eagles, I think it's a good song. There's some very cool hooks on there. And it's definitely a decisive end to this middle democratic period that I think got really slept on at the time, despite being musically rich. Because everything changed after this one. This is the iteration of the band that would end with the live act over the following year or two. Certain members started to have issues with addiction. The group in general would go into release hiatus with a lot less recording. So there's still one record after this I have to talk about, but I would say this is probably the last real creative statement for them as a band as a whole before things got super messy. My personal highlights include Sail on Sailor, probably the closest thing they got to a hit in the classic rock realm, and The Traitor is Carl's contribution, and it's kind of like 2 songs in one, and it's really great. It kind of picks up where his surf's up stuff left off. There's an associated EP, Mount Vernon and Fairway, that was released with the record. It's pretty out there fairy tale from Brian. Don't really recommend it to someone who's not a huge Beach Boys fan, but the music portions on there, as well as the Holland closer, kind of signal the work that Brian was doing. He has like this generous use of Moog synth that he would turn back to later in the 70s. Not a huge presence overall from him outside of co-writing Sail and Sailor. So you could say this is the band's most impressive achievement without him near the forefront. it basically closes the chapter for them in a pretty great fashion. And it's kind of a shame they couldn't have added to their legacy, kind of continuing more along this trajectory, but at least we got this one. So yeah, 4.5 stars for Holland.
All right. My next pick is an album I don't think anyone else has talked about yet. Number 7, I maybe slightly underrate this one compared to some other people, but I still love it a lot. I'm gonna go with Surf's Up. I think this is a great album, and for me, the highlights are at the end, the 3 Brian songs, Day in the Life of a Tree, Till I Die, and Surf's Up. Although I think this would have a higher ranking if I didn't prefer the Smile Sessions version of Surf's Up with Brian's lead. But Carl does a good job singing too, but I just prefer with this song, I think it should be Brian singing it. Till I Die and Day in the Life of a Tree are also amazing, as are the 2 Carl songs, Long Promise Road and Feel Flows. It bums me out a bit that there's no Dennis songs on here, especially no like Wouldn't It Be Nice to Live Again or Celebrate the News or any of his songs from around this era that could have been on the album. And obviously Student Demonstration Time is a little bit of a drag, but overall it's a good experience, I think, from front to back, you know. I had it at my number 2 favorite album of 71 behind Who's Next, and I would probably have it the same place now. I think it's a great one. Love this one a lot.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about that soon. Yeah, I just watched my ranking, so this is the moment I need to disappoint people. Basically all Beach Boys fans. I do like it, but I don't love it. And I think we all know where I'm going now, but yeah, it's the beat. Pet Sounds is my number 7. I love some of the songs. Wouldn't it be nice? It would be very nice. Just an awesome pop number from the 60s. Can't fault it at all. Sloop John B is a magical song, and really, God Only Knows is again one of the key Beach Boys songs, and yeah, really, God only knows how Brian and Tony wrote this, but then also love Carolina No. It's a beautiful song. There was some like scary ending to it, but it's sudden. But yeah, Pet Sounds I think is a cool instrumental. But other than that, I don't know. It's just this is kind of tough because I understand the production is great. Can't blame that, especially for 60s, but maybe even all time. And it's groundbreaking and all, but I just don't. The other songs don't do as much as me as the highlights I said. Some of those, yeah, are kind of a downers, but it's meant to be that way. But there's also like instrumental Let's Go Away for a While. I never cared for that kind of a, oh yeah, it's only one song, but so I kind of find it side 2 being stronger than side 1, even if I like the side 1 first and last song, and it's kind of, yeah, I'm kind of struggling with this one because in some ways I understand, but in some ways I'm not very hesitant to listen to this than my top 6. So 4 stars, very good. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, we all have those ones where we can't quite get there. I don't know. I'm not sure Aidan will love this placement for this one either, but I have for number 6, I have the Smile Sessions, 4.5. But hopefully I can at least explain myself here. It's kind of a crossroads for the band, legendary lost album that haunted them, particularly Brian, for years. Good vibrations, wildly inventive, huge success, kind of ambition to create a full album with like the suites and motifs and all that stuff. Could have been a landmark progressive pop record. And a lot of it did get made eventually. The best songs would form centerpieces for several albums to come. But after months and months of brilliant music, it never quite got there. Brian's increasing mental health struggles to oversee it all, other factors, a lot of reasons that get mentioned over the years. He would complete it as a solo artist in 2004. And then we finally got, in 2011, this official release of the sessions. I think the music, especially the completed songs, are brilliant and add to their arsenal of top-tier work. It's really hard to deny a roster of songs like Surf's Up, Good Vibrations, Heroes and Villains, Wonderful, Evanescence. I lament that we didn't get full versions of Child is Father of the Man and Love to Say Dada. As an album, I think really the only reason why it's not higher is just because it's not a fully finished product on everything. And with all the sessions available, it's almost overwhelming to try to conceive of the definitive version. And so that just leaves me a bit conflicted on how to contextualize it. Surf's Up in particular, I mean, it has its home as the album of the same name as well. Maybe the version here I like a little more too. Might talk about that again later. The ballad lover in me would probably give the edge to Pet Sounds anyways, like if this had been fully done, especially when the playfulness and moderately stylish smile can go in so many directions that hit my sweet spot and then go in other directions. But the ideas here are so unique, it's almost otherworldly. So it's not a knock at it that it's number 6, because it's just because of how much I love all these other things, and because this was just, you know, it's the sessions. It's not exactly how we would have gotten it had it been fully completed. So yeah, it's maybe the most important thing that happened to them after Pet Sounds. So really great stuff. Any music fan should probably check it out.
Yeah. I'm all right with those placements. I was expecting worse. So like, I don't know. My number 6, an album I think both of you talked about a while ago. I'm gonna go with All Summer Long, which I think it's a weird one for me to have it this high, but I think it's one of the most cohesive albums anyone's putting out in 64, in terms of almost all the songs have this summery theme, and they're all very consistent with the hooks. It's super front to back, strong. Almost every song adds to that. I Get Around is great. The title track is great. Hushabye, Little Honda, Will Run Away. Do You Remember in Drive-In or Two, I really like a lot, even though they're a little cheesy. But to me, this is a quintessential kind of early concept album. It's a depiction of the average summer in the life of like a teenager in 1964. And I think that's such a cool document to have. It has, I think, endless replay value. All of these songs have amazing hooks on them, easily rivaling, what Phil Spector with the Ronettes stuff and the Beatles and even like the early Stones and all those other people. This is definitely one of the best albums from this era, I think. So yeah, just for me, this one's risen a lot. It probably wouldn't have even made the top 10 a while ago, but just, hearing how consistently they deliver these hooks, these melodies, these super thick arrangements, it's just front to back, really impressive music.
All Summer Long. It's very cool. I have what Aidan already talked about that. Don't remember the Andrew, but Surf's Up is my number 6. I kind of feel like this is the most maybe the most 70s prog that they could go into, but still maybe not being full-on prog. But there's some really cool songs, including Disney Girls, 1957. This is a very pretty song. And there's some ultra pretty harmonies coming later in the song. It's just fabulous. And I gotta agree, the ending is awesome with the Brian's number, and Till I Die is pretty dark for Beach Boys, very melancholic. Surfs Up from Smile, yeah. You can definitely hear it feels maybe more 60s than 70s, but I guess it's not a bad thing with the Beach Boys. And Feel Flows, I think, is the great number 2. There's some like Take a Load of Your Feet, which is kind of silly, but it's in a good way. 2, Student Demonstration Time. There's kind of a bit boring blues rock feel to it, but there's also cool presses and sax and synths. So it's kind of 50-50. And yeah, I think it's a totally worthy listen. And yeah, 4 stars for Surf's Up.
So if you've been keeping track, you know, I have one kind of later one left. That's Love You, and that's my number 5. And so basically you have Brian following up 15 Big Ones with his most productive creative period since the 60s. Basically takes the elements I liked from that prior record, like the unusual production and quirky songwriting, and then just goes all out with it in a more committed and inspired way. Maybe their most polarizing record. I'm not sure the public or marketers knew what to do with it, and certain Beach Boys fans hate it too. But on the other hand, some love it, and I'm one of them. Artists like Patti Smith, Peter Buck, Lindsey Buckingham, Alex Chilton all seem to be fans as well. To me, there's nothing else quite like it, and that's what makes it special. Almost all the songs are written by Brian and Brian alone. He plays many of the instruments himself. Carl helps finish off the mixes. Can't really talk about it without talking about the Mini Moog synth. It's everywhere on this thing, and it's like this bizarro wall of sound. Lyrically, many of the songs are quite childish and strange, pretty much in line with his mind at the time, which I definitely can see being distracting if you're looking for something deeper. But I think it's interesting just to see the glimpse that you're getting kind of behind the curtain. And the real selling point is the underlying music and how it sounds. Brian and Dennis, much like on 15 Big Ones, have shattered their voices, but the songs and arrangements are so infectious. It's not just all quirky pop songs. There's a run of ballad on sides too that maintains the sonic vibe, but are pretty and well put together. Maybe see how the stuff Brian was working on from Holland, like Funky Pretty, would lead to this. Unlike the rest of their stuff from the mid-70s onward, I like everything here. Love most of it, really. Favorites include Let Us Go On This Way, The Night Was So Young, I'll Bet He's Nice. To me, it's the last great album with the Beach Boys name on it, even if it's more of kind of like a Brian project with them, you know, participating. And they definitely would never get this close to consistently enjoyable again. So yeah, probably my most controversial pick for the top 5, but that's just kind of where it landed on this new listen. So yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to get it higher, but there were just too many great ones. But yeah, it's an album I love a lot. My number 5, also a little rarer, I guess, for this to be top 5. I'm gonna go with 2020. I think it's an absolutely great album. I think it improves on the 3 preceding it because it sacrifices a little bit of the cohesion, but it makes up for it just by having killer song after killer song. You know, we start out with Do It Again, which I love. It's one of their last big hit singles. It's such a great song. I love the drums. I love the kind of like low organ and the bass. That's all great. Another one, I think this one's a little polarizing. I really love Bluebirds Over the Mountain. I think it's got a great melody. I love the bass line. I love the vocals. The guitar can be a little crazy, but I still think it's a great song. And then coming up to I Can Hear Music, that one's amazing. The whole Carl delivery, maybe his best vocal ever, up there with like Darlin' and God Only Knows. And now I'm being reminded that Tom sent me him covering the song. I need to listen to that. But there's some other great ones. Time to Get Alone. That one's amazing. That's kind of feels very Pet Sounds-ish. Yeah, and that's one that I got into, one of the first ones on this album I really got into. I love the waltz time and all of that. It's a great melody, great chord progression. Our Prayer is amazing. Just the way that whole arrangement is, a cappella. I love that. Never Learn Not to Love is, the Charles Manson song. It's pretty great. Dennis' vocal delivery is very strong and it has a kind of epic sound. Dennis's also does All I Want to Do and Be With Me on this, which are both great songs in my opinion. And then the only song I think is kind of a weak link on this one is Cotton Fields, because I like the single version better. Every other song I think is great. And then finally at the end, Cabinescence, shout out my channel, is a great song and, one of the real highlights from that whole Smile period. It's like an even more, schizophrenic version of Heroes and Villains, even into a whole nother level. Great song. Tons of great stuff on this album. So yeah, it's going to come in at my number 5. And it was pretty close to getting up one slot higher, but number 4 was just too good.
Yeah. Nice picks for the top 5. My number 5 is Smile. The Smile Sessions, what we are calling it. I guess one of the biggest What If albums there are. I personally wished definitely that it would have been released. It would have been cool to see how mind-blowing it would have been at the time. Sometimes I find it a bit hard to follow. A lot of things happen in this one, but on the other hand, it's kind of the point of it, I feel like. So it's sort of like doing it all record, and I respect it a lot, and it's intriguing, but definitely isn't as high for me as some others. But yeah, there's some great numbers like that I've basically talked already in some other albums, like Heroes and Villains and Good Vibrations, and well, Cabinescence is very beautiful, as Aidan is too, very beautiful. And there's like there's some odd things here. The elements, fire, Mrs. O'Leary's cow. That's quite the title is pretty odd, and I have to say Dada is an interesting song actually. Do you like Worms? Well, it's a crazy song, definitely a crazy song. And Our Prayer is a cool way to start them. Yeah, it's like 90 songs, I think. So I feel a lot. I don't know if it would have been real Smile in 1967. I think it would have been 90 songs maybe. I saw some track listing that had 12 songs, but I don't. The Smile history is too confusing to me. I don't know, but yeah, it's very good for 4 stars out of 5.
I'm probably the only one here who was kind of following before we got the Smile sessions, and so we just had random like pieces on YouTube to try to figure it out ourselves. I'm glad we got something at least somewhat organized. My number 4 is Surf's Up. I have a lot of thoughts on it. It's excellent overall. I think there's a couple flaws that get in the way of being, otherwise it would be like a no-brainer 5-star for me. Instead, it's stuck as a high 4.5. So if I had to tweak one album of theirs, it's probably this one. The best stuff here is incredible. Most of it is quite great. Probably not saying too much new in mentioning Student Demonstration Time, kind of sticking out like a sore thumb. Blues rock cover of Ride and Sell Block Number 9 with different lyrics. And I wouldn't say it's awful in isolation. Like the siren effects are kind of cool, but it doesn't belong here, and I don't think it works in this context. Take a Load Off Your Feet. I like. It's playful. Probably like it somewhere else more, but it's good. Sad part is there were a few awesome Dennis songs that could have been put on here, like Aidan mentioned. Throw in, say, like, Wouldn't It Be Nice to Live Again and Lady, and you'd be talking about something even more special. But these days I like to go with a little custom playlist. But let's talk about the highlights, because there's a bunch of them. Because you kind of see the cover art, it's very somber, and I think that's reflected in the music too. We've got the beautiful harmonies, but there's more of an atmospheric kind of vibe that we're going with. The contrast between like Cool Cool Water closing Sunflower and then opening with Don't Go Near the Water here is quite striking. It's probably the furthest thing from a surfing record, an unfamiliar person might assume from the title. It's like they're reflecting on the band's heyday and flipping it upside down. We get Carl delivering some of his first true compositions in Long Promise Road and Field Flows, and they're excellent mix of like this prog pop and psychedelia in one. Bruce brings this nostalgic song Disney Girls, kind of goes along with his Sunflower work, and such a great close to the album with the 3 Brian songs. Title track, obviously they finished it here. That's definitely important. You would have hate to have them not completed that song of all songs, especially the tag there, because I don't think they had a finished tag to work with until this one. So that's there as the centerpiece, but I also think Till I Die, super haunting and great. I love A Day in the Life of a Tree too. Just really great addition to this middle period that really made me realize kind of the other stuff there was to find, and probably what brought me into becoming such a big fan.
Yeah, this is a tough top 4. My number 4, I'm gonna go with Sunflower. Total classic. Love every song on here. Dennis has great stuff. 4 songs: Slip On Through, Gotta Know the Woman, It's About Time, and Forever. All of those are super good. Brian is doing amazing stuff with This Whole World, Add Some Music to Your Day, which was their first single after moving off of Capitol, and one of their last hits, Even at All. And then there's Cool Cool Water, Dusting Off from Smile. That's a big one. My 2 favorites on the album are probably Forever, which is probably Dennis's best song ever. It's just so beautiful. Such a good set of lyrics, music, and so like heart-wrenching. And then also All I Want to Do, which is my favorite song on the album, which is funny because I don't think Brian likes it very much. He's kind of gone on record saying he doesn't like it, but he's wrong. It's a great song. It has an absolutely amazing sound. Doesn't sound like anything else going on in 1970. It's like dream pop. Sounds like something out of like the 90s or something. It's Mike's vocals and lyrics are probably some of the best he's ever done in both categories. He sounds great. I love the kind of dreary drum beat. It's like kind of a proto drum machine sound, but it's just that same beat over and over again. The wash of reverb. It's definitely one of their best songs, period. And there's even more great songs I haven't even mentioned, like Our Sweet Love, one of their best ballads. At My Window, such a pretty song. The 2 Bruce songs I used to be kind of chilly on, but I like them a lot more now. They're both really good. So yeah, it's a great album all around, and it's one that for most other bands would probably be a lot higher, but this one, the top 4 are all in my top 10 overall favorite albums by anyone. So it's it's a good place to be in. So number 4, Sunflower.
My number 4 is 2020. And yeah, damn, I really like this production of 2020. No more kind of like those lo-fi elements of the previous two. Even I'm not exactly sure how lo-fi those albums actually are. I don't know what's the lo-fi nowadays, probably way different. But yeah, this album is it's kind of a mishmash of ideas, sort of, but the ideas are still really, really awesome. I started with Do It Again, which is very bouncy, very fun, kind of rocking too in the Beach Boys way. And I love I Can Hear Music. Tom's cover is good, very good too. You should check it out, Aidan, when you can. And the Bluebirds Over the Mountain, yeah, I like the lead guitar. I think it's kind of over the top, but I like the over the top feel. And I love the drums by Jim Gordon playing. With All I Want to Do, I like the instrumental more than the vocal, actually. I don't always find Mike that cool of a singer. Well, he's definitely worthy, but sometimes some of these rockers aren't the best, maybe. But Time to Get Alone, I love it how they named it after Andrew. That's a great song. And Our Prayer is from Smile. It's a nice version of that. And Cabin Essence 2, which the harmonies are the great thing about it. And yeah, I like this the first time I heard it with Aidan and still like it. It's a 4.5 stars. So great album.
Yeah, so definitely competitive at the top here. My number 3 is Beach Boys Today, which I don't think anyone has spoken about yet, if I'm not mistaken. Sometimes I have this at 5, sometimes I have it at 4.5. I'm going to go 4.5 today, but it's really great. All Summer Long was already great, but the Road to Pet Sounds and the mythos of Brian kind of is paved with this record, especially. You get the Wrecking Crew on here, more present than ever, more of a wall of sound approach, and more adventurous songwriting. There's a sequencing choice here to split the record between the up-tempo tracks with hit potential in the first half and then ballads on the second half. And I think it flows really nicely this time around. We're pretty much past those Fun in the Sun themes here, which is an identity that can't shake, but this one manages to move past it. There's a focus deeper into relationships, more complex feelings of doubt and insecurity. Those are the kinds of themes that Pet Sounds would pick up on. What really puts this one over the top is the back half. Really gorgeous ballad after another. They're leaning more into the Baroque pop while keeping a tight songwriting structure. There is like a spoken word track, but it's not really intrusive because it's just kind of at the end. It's like this come down bonus thing. So I'm really glad it didn't break the flow this time. All the songs are good and nicely arranged. Some stand really highly for me in their catalog, like The Lush, Please Let Me Wonder, and Kiss Me Baby. So definitely the highlight for me of the pre-Pet Sounds Beach Boys.
Yeah, great choice. And I'm going to talk about that one too, because that's my number 3 today. It's one that's really shot up a bunch for me lately. Every single song is amazing, I think. Do You Want to Dance, one of their best early hits, maybe the best production on any Beach Boys song up to this point. Good to My Baby and Don't Hurt My Little Sister both have monster hooks on them. When I Grow Up to Be a Man is one of my very favorites of their early singles. I think it's got such a cool sound. I love the melody. It's kind of got a bittersweet vibe, and it's so much ingenuity in the arrangement. And then Dance, Dance, Dance. That one's incredible. I mean, that's like a total specterized pop symphony. And then and that's just talking about side one, which I still go back and forth on if I like side one or side two more because they're so good in different ways. For me, I gotta say they're probably equal in my eyes overall. But side two, Please Let Me Wonder, amazing ballad, one of their best ever. I'm So Young, one of their very best covers, I think up there with Hushabye, with I Can Hear Music, Do You Want to Dance, and Sloop John B. And then She Knows Me Too Well, so good. I love the kind of like, I don't know, it's almost like a revolving or kind of like carousel type arrangement on that one. And great harmonies, kind of reminds me of Don't Worry Baby and the way Mike's got his like low counterpoint line in the chorus, but it's such a great song. And Kiss Me Baby is another one that I absolutely love. I love the French horn and the saxophone, the wood blocks, the piano. It's got so many different instruments playing off each other in the arrangement. One of, definitely the most advanced that Brian had ever worked up to this point. So yeah, it's an amazing song. So 5 stars for me. Obviously, the weak spot with Bull Session with Big Daddy is kind of silly, but whatever. I think of it like a bonus track. Bonus tracks, I don't let it hurt my score that much because I kind of think, the album pretty much ends with in the back of my mind, and it's Although on the cover it says 12 great new songs by Brian Wilson, and 10 of them are by him. One's a cover and one's just them talking. So I think they maybe stretched the definition of a song a little bit for the front cover. So yeah, great album.
Yeah, 12 big ones. But yeah, number 3, same as you, the Beach Boys Today, 1965. Yeah, I'm on the camp. I prefer side one on this. I find it, well, I guess there's more maybe like full-on pop numbers in the side one, and I enjoy those probably the most. And yeah, Do You Wanna Dance? That chorus is one of the biggest I know. Like it explodes in my when I hear it. It's wild, and I love it. I love the harpsichord on When I Grow Up to Be a Man. That's a cool one. Help Me Around is a classic. Hi Al, Jardine. I haven't mentioned Al enough, sadly. But Dance 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 is a lot of fun, and there's some great ballads in the side too. Please Let Me Wonder, and like there's some She Knows Me Too Well. The Brian doing the falsettos, even throughout the album, they're just so magical. And I love the outro to Kiss Me Baby, and I'm So Young even has great Brian vocal. For me, the Bull Session hurts because I like a good ending, and I don't. It's doesn't help the situation. So it's a 4.5 album to me, but some of these songs are like one of the best of the 60s probably. But yeah, number 3 Today.
Well, we can definitely agree on that then. Today, 3rd spot across the board. So I could have gone at various points in my fandom. I probably could have gone either way on these last two, but my first 5-star is Sunflower, number 2 for this ranking. And it was never really in doubt for me as the second best record here. As I said, on some days it's even my favorite. As a unit rather than as a vessel for Brian's talents, I don't think it gets better than this for the Beach Boys. It's just a really fantastic pop rock record, kicking off the new decade. The Wilson brothers shine here. Brian not really running things as he used to or singing as many leads, but he's still actively involved here. Dennis was emerging as a great songwriter, and we get him in his prime here with 4 tracks. Carl overseeing the sound of the record along with engineer Stephen Desper, who I actually got to talk to briefly about the making of this. Bruce Johnston brings a couple of his biggest contributions to the group, and then Mike is probably on his greatest vocal for me on All I Want to Do. There's more polish to this record than some of the late 60s stuff, and it really sounds awesome. Vocals are great as to be expected, dynamic songs, rich melodies, a couple of rockers with some punch to it. Even the less praised tracks here I think are quite awesome. Like Got to Know the Woman, I think it sounds like an Elvis song or something, I don't know. But what really puts it over the top are the highlights. And there's a run on the second side. It's almost overflowing in greatness to me. All I Want to Do, it's like a trippy, dreamy song. Like Aidan said, it sounds ahead of its time. Gorgeous Dennis Ballad and Forever. Our Sweet Love, it's like a lush Baroque pop, kind of going for a bit of like the God Only Knows type sound, I guess. I also really love Deirdre, the Bruce song, really infectious sunshine pop tune there. They spent a lot of time in these sessions and came up with a lot of material, even getting a few rejected track lists along the way. Really hard to deny on the ones they settled on, but it was so fruitful you could probably make another couple of great albums out of the remaining material, which you can find on the Feel Flows comp. Shout out to like Breakaway, Celebrate the News, that were non-album singles from this time. And tragically, with all these great things, the album bombed. It was, I believe, their lowest charting of everything until MIU, if I'm not mistaken. Which is a shame because I feel like it's very accessible too. The public didn't really seem to know what they were doing with the band at this time, I guess. And I think the record label didn't do it any favors. So thankfully it's gotten more appreciation now, and the box set that came out actually outcharted its original run, which is quite funny. So yeah, easy 5 stars for me there with Sunflower.
Yeah, Sunflower's bad chart is very sad. Reminds me of how, like, I think Village Green might be the lowest charting Kinks album out of all of them. Like, what are you people doing? It doesn't make sense. But yep, number 2 for me, I'm gonna be talking about Pet Sounds, an album I absolutely love, but it's an album I used to think was great, but it wasn't like all-time top 10. Now it's like all-time top 1 or top 2, I guess, because it's only number 2. But just absolutely amazing songs from cover to cover. Wouldn't It Be Nice and Sloop Jumpy are amazing A-side singles. Caroline No and God Only Knows are great ballads. And I love all of the other like more minor tracks on here too. I think Here Today and That's Not Me are amazing. I really love I Know There's an Answer, and I'm Waiting for the Day as well. I think I Just Wasn't Made for These Times is one of Brian's most personal songs ever. And just overall, the quality is just so strong across the entire board. And then there's no weak links. You Still Believe in Me is amazing with that bicycle bell ending. Don't Talk, Put Your Head on My Shoulder is a super pretty, chill ballad. I guess the only weak spots would probably be the instrumentals for me, because although I really like them, I would say I like the Smile instrumentals a little bit more. And for these, I really like Pet Sounds, but Let's Go Away for a While was kind of, maybe I would just give that like an 8 out of 10, but almost and then Pet Sounds itself, a 9, and everything else can get a 10. Maybe I would have replaced one or both of the instrumentals with Little Girl I Once Knew or something like that. But then we're really splitting hairs. I mean, it's an amazing album. It's a classic for a reason. It's like one of the best albums by anyone. And yeah, just so good, so rich and musically rewarding. One of the most, I guess, just sonically impressive albums by anyone. I mean, even Revolver coming out this year, Blonde on Blonde, I still would put this above, because I think the level of craft being put into the arrangements, the production it's just second to none. So yeah, my number 2 is going to be Pet Sounds.
Aidan did Pet Sounds and Andrew did Sunflower, so I'm gonna follow Andrew's lead here and go with Sunflower, number 2. This probably fits into the soft rock category, kinda. And I do like my soft rock. And, well, there's songs I absolutely love, like, again, these titles, DR Dre. I like it. It sounds wholesome, actually. Very soft rock, and I think the drum fills are perfect in it. And It's About Time is very dynamic. It's kind of addicting to listen to it, and it's a very nice guitar solo. With Tears in the Morning, I don't know. I got like George Harrison solo career vibes with that song. I can hear him singing it, and legendary Hal Blaine is on the drums. And all I want to do is, I have really no idea how they made it to sound like it, but it's absolutely brilliant. And forever with the harmonies, and it gets pretty grandiose. Love it. And yeah, that's some music to your day. I agree with that sentiment. And Got to Know the Woman is a song I don't, not as big of fan. I don't like how Dennis says woman in that song. It's a random point, but I like the harpsichord and drumming, but it's not as brilliant as other songs here. But yeah, it's a great listen, and 4.5. Great one.
I think I almost lost track of what your last one is, but I think I know now, but I'll leave that to you. So I guess I'm the only one who has Pet Sounds left, so that's my number 1, 5 stars. It's kind of where the stars align for them. Brian Wilson, like his growing musical artistry reaches its zenith. It's before his personal struggles start to really kind of complicate things, doubling down on the adolescent themes from today that really resonate with those reflecting on like heartbreak and love and all that. It's like a coming of age album in that regard. And what really sets it apart is the immaculate, carefully crafted studio detail, phenomenal vocal arrangements and performances. You've got like full-on orchestras and less conventional instruments used to unusual effect in pop songs, and then they all work seamlessly. Sounds great in mono and stereo, which you can't say about many records from this era. And the songwriting is incredible, melodies upon melodies that kind of weave within each other and come across as effortless, even while they're intricate and innovative. For good reason, probably always the point of comparison to anything else in their catalog. It's a tall order to live up to, and I don't want to lose sight of the greatness they have elsewhere. In some respects, it's almost hard to relate to in context because its style, like it's just kind of stands on its own from the surrounding work. It's almost hard to believe that it's there. As for songs, I mean, you know, Godly Knows and Would It Be Nice are all-timers. Sloop John B, Caroline No, great singles that led into the record. I've got some personal favorites like That's Not Me, I'm Waiting for the Day. I'm actually probably the biggest fan of the three of us of the instrumentals. I really loved Let's Go Away for a while. But it did take some time. I think the whole record, it took listens to kind of appreciate the level that I do. But once the record gets going, it doesn't really let up for me. All the songs are great. As long as you like lush, Baroque, sunshine pop, and that's not a deal breaker for you, pretty much just gives you what you want for that. And pretty close to a perfect album, I think. 5 stars.
Nice. Yeah, great kind of rundown of why it's such an amazing album. For me, yeah, if it was just studio albums, it would be my number 1. So getting into number 1, which I'm gonna go Smile Sessions. Just so amazing. I think I heard this for the first time when I was like 10, 11 maybe, and I was listening. I was like, this is like nothing I've ever heard before. I mean, it's like the most crazy out there music you can imagine. Um, it's so great. Going through all the songs, Our Prayer in G, that's such a cool start to the album, mostly with the vocals and then bringing in a little bit, and then going into Heroes and Villains, which is so good with that cantina section and the extra outro they add. Do You Like Worms is a crazy song, but it's one I like a lot. Then Cabin Essence, which I like a bit better here than the one on 2020, because I think the mix a little bit, Dennis's vocals are a little higher in this one. And then My Only Sunshine, that's such a cool, unique cover they do of it. And then side two, which may be even better than side one, you've got Wonderful, one of their best songs, in my opinion, ever. Song for Children, Child is Father of the Man, Surf's Up. They're all so good. They're all just so amazing. And it's an album. And then side three with The Elements Suite, and then finally closing off with the big Good Vibrations hit. It's amazing from front to back. Obviously, wouldn't have looked exactly like this in '67. There was like a handwritten list of 12 songs to be on it. I think Carl wrote that or something, and that was kind of out of order. But yeah, it wouldn't have all of these songs. It'd probably be shorter, but as is, it's like a in between a single and a double album. But yeah, it just rules. It's got a mix and match of everything that makes the Beach Boys stuff so great, and it's kaleidoscopic, psychedelic, insane, in all the right proportions, and it's just a great album. Yeah, 5 stars.
Pet Sounds and Smile definitely make a lot of sense as the peaks of Beach Boys, and my pick doesn't, but it's okay. But my number one is Wild Honey. Thank you, Aidan, for showing me this. I think, I don't know, do you remember, but I kind of hyped up this album when I heard it, and still do. I think it's it's a 5 stars for me. I love the soul R&B feels that they bring onto the Beach Boys sound, and maybe it's less harmonies than their previous stuff, but I kind of, in sort of ways, they kind of peak their harmonies during that Pet Sounds Smile era. I feel like maybe even on today and such, but so it's kind of a good to try different things, and I think this album is quite quite a departure for Beach Boys in general, and it's kind of unique in its own way, and just a lot of, well, the most important thing for me is that it's a lot of fun. It's a quick listen for sure. Songs are short, but very catchy and very to the point, and I think it flows very well. And there's just awesome songs like Wild Honey, Darling, and Here Comes the Night, and Let the Wind Blow, and so on. Pretty much most of these, and I don't know what's my least favorite song here. Mama Says is an a cappella song, so maybe that I'm not as fan of a cappella stuff most, but the harmonies are tight there. But yeah, I don't know what can I say. It's I love the cover art and the sound of it. It's a cool one. So number one, Wild Honey, 5 stars.
Awesome, we did it.
We did it.
Yep.
Well, that was our ranking, and it's time to do top 10 songs from the Beach Boys. A lot of songs to pick from, definitely, and I'm gonna let Andrew start.
Okay, sweet. So my number 10, I guess I'll start by saying I probably could have done 100 because there's a lot to work through. But so if you make it the top 10, you're very special to me, I guess. So number 10 is Please Not Let Me Wonder from Beach Boys Today. Number 9, Don't Worry Baby. Real standout from Shutdown Volume 2. Number 8, Little Bird from Friends. Probably the one that kind of jumped out at me most on this new listen. Rocketed up the rankings. Number 7, Wouldn't It Be Nice? Opening Pet Sounds. Number 6, Forever from Sunflower. Number 5, Good Vibrations, the hit single, showed up on Smiley Smile. Number 4, All I Wanna Do from Sunflower. Number 3 is Till I Die from Surf's Up. Number 2, God Only Knows from Pet Sounds. And number 1 is Surf's Up. And I'm gonna go with the new mix that shows up on Feel Flows. It's closest to Smile Sessions, but I just really like the mix to it. It's very good. So yeah, the Feel Flows mix of Surf's Up is my number 1.
Great picks. I've probably got a lot in common. My number 10 is That's Not Me off of Pet Sounds. Love this one. My number 9 is talked about this already, Kiss Me Baby from Today. Number 8, I've got Cabin Essence from specifically the Smile version I'm going to go with. Number 7, Wild Card, I've got from Feel Flows, the original version of Big Sur by Mike. Love this one so much. Was one I really got into. Number 6, I've got All I Want to Do, for me, the highlight off of Sunflower. Number 5, I've got When I Grow Up to Be a Man, my favorite of their early singles and my favorite song on Beach Boys Today. My number 4, I've got Surf's Up, a total classic, specifically the Smile version for me. Number 3, I've got God Only Knows. Again, one of their best songs ever, one of the best songs by everyone. And then my top 2, I go, back and forth. Today, I'm going to go with number 2, Heroes and Villains, and number 1, Good Vibrations. Kind of a package deal for me. Love these both so much. They kind of flip-flop back and forth between being first and second place. Both such good pop songs, great singles, and just amazing listening experiences. So yeah, top 10.
Yep, great picks. Great picks. Starting my top 10 is from 2020, I Can Hear Music. Great one. Number 9 is Disney Girls, 1957 from Surf's Up. Number 8 is California Girls from Summer Days and Summer Nights. Love it. Number 7, Do You Wanna Dance from Today. Yeah, the chorus is someone that everyone needs to experience. Just play it loud. And number 6 is All I Wanna Do from Sunflower. I think we all had this one. Definitely one of the coolest songs in the catalog for me. Number 5 is God Only Knows, a classic. Number 4 is Darlin' from Wild Honey. Number 3 is Wouldn't It Be Nice? We've all heard it and we all love it from Pet Sounds. Number 2 is Heroes and Villains from Smile. I know this version better, so I usually listen to this Smile version, but yeah, this has grown on me a lot actually. Probably would have been as high, but nowadays. Number 1, also from Smile, Good Vibrations. Also the version I know better. I'm guessing this is the single version too. Was in 1966, and Smile has some other bit longer version. Yeah, but yeah, Good Vibrations is, I think, one of the best 60s songs and maybe all time actually. And yeah, that's my top 10 list. And now we're doing a short segment of we all had to highlight like a bonus non-album song. And well, this was, I think Andrew came up with this idea. We should thank Andrew for this one, and it will be coming in the later episodes too. And so, Andrew, what's your highlighted song?
Yeah, so they sat on so much material that never found their way on an album. So I could have gone a lot of different ways, but I'm going to go with one that I just can't believe it took over 40 years to finally come out. And that is Wouldn't It Be Nice to Live Again? That was a Dennis song that was pulled from Surf's Up due to a track listing dispute, I believe. Was fully finished, has, the brothers on harmony and stuff, one of Dennis's best vocals. It's a really awesome song all around, and a real shame it didn't get included at the time, but I'll highlight it now.
Yeah, the one I'm gonna go with is I could have gone with Big Sur again off of my top 10, but I wanted to mix it up and pick a different one. So the one I'm gonna go with is one that's one of my all-time favorites, their version of Old Man River, which is an outtake from 2020. Just absolutely love this song. I love Mike's kind of subdued vocals. The group sounds great. The trumpet arrangement with that old-timey Dixieland feel. It just sounds great. It's an amazing production of the song. And the song itself is just one of those classics. And I love how they start it with a rendition or an excerpt of Old Folks at Home by Stephen Foster. So yeah, just rules.
Nice picks, both of you. I had a thing that just made me smile. Definitely not the best song that I could have picked probably, but it was like, even the title, when I saw the title, I have to pick this. It's recorded in 1978, and it was released on the Endless Harmony compilation, or what's it, from the late 90s. It's Brian's Back, written by Mike Love. And I actually like it, and it's fun and has like lyrical references to older songs. And yeah, if there's a song called Brian's Back, I had to do it. But yeah, it was just some random thought I had. And it's my highlighted song, I guess. But yeah, that was our Beach Boys ranking, top 10 songs, and highlighted song, bonus song. And I want to thank Andrew and Aidan for coming here. You can find both Andrew and Aidan from the Deep Focus show, which is, I will put the link on the description below.
And thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thank you so much, man.
Yeah, no problem. Glad we get to make this. But yeah, thanks for watching. Just play it loud, and we're gonna see you next time. Bye bye. Oh, hello, guys. What are you still doing here? I thought the video already ended, but we're back. We're gonna do a short little encore segment of who had the best year. Was it the Beach Boys, the Beatles, or the Rolling Stones? We had to, each of us, choose a winner from 1964 to 1969. So, Andrew, what was your winners of each year?
Okay, so a lot of these I can go either way, but I did my best to kind of spread it out a bit. So 64, I'm gonna go with Beatles. I feel like Hard Day's Night might be the one that puts it over the top, but they're kind of neck and neck with Beach Boys for me. But that one is Beatles. 65, I'm going to give to the Beach Boys because, you know, Today is right there with me, along with Rubber Soul. But then you also get Summer Days, which I would say I prefer to Help. And Stones are, you know, they're coming along, but they're not quite there yet for me. So 65 to the Beach Boys. 66, also going Beach Boys. It's, you know, you can, Aftermath is good. Revolver is a classic. Pet Sounds is a classic. Beach Boys have Pet Sounds and also Good Vibrations on top of it. So I'll give that to them. 67, I gotta go Beatles. Sgt. Pepper's and Magical Mystery Tour. Two probably 5-star records for me. Strawberry Fields Forever is my favorite Beatles song. So I feel like they were, you know, operating at full capacity there. Stones low-key had some cool stuff going on there too, though, with some of their singles and Between the Buttons and stuff. But that one's Beatles. So far I'm 2-2, Beatles and Beach Boys. 68, I'm going to give it to the Stones. White Album is great. I said how much I like Friends. Beggar's Banquet for me is right in there. And you also get Jumpin' Jack Flash, Child of the Moon, which is, to me, one of their greatest non-album singles. And they also had some cool outtake stuff going on around that period too. So I think out of any year, it's the one that they had a good shot with. And then 69, 2020's good. It has another non-album single to its credit too. A lot of the Sunflower stuff was being written then. I like Let It Bleed a lot. Gimme Shelter might be my favorite Stones song. But I think I'm going to give the edge to Beatles there for Abbey Road. Abbey Road is definitely one of my favorite records. It'd be my favorite of the three that released records that year. So that, I guess that ends up 3 Beatles, 2 Beach Boys, 1 Stones. But all bets are off once you start looking in the early 70s based on how I reviewed some of these Beach Boys albums from that time period. So, yeah.
Great picks. This was hard, you know, it's really hard doing this looking back. For me, just a lot of really nail-biter close ones. For 64, I'm going to give it to the Beatles for my favorite. I do think the Beach Boys have higher highs this year. Like, I definitely think Don't Worry Baby is probably a better song than any Beatles song this year. But the Beatles do have more consistency, I think, across their albums. Even if I do like All Summer Long, maybe slightly more than Hard Day's Night, but just overall, the Beatles are bringing an A game more consistently. And the Stones are kind of just getting started and doing a lot of bluesy covers. The 65, I'm going to go Beach Boys because I think Today is killer, knocks out Rubber Soul for me. And Summer Days and Help are pretty close in my estimation. Both amazing. Maybe slight edge to Summer Days. So 2 for 2. Beach Boys side wins that. And then 66, got to be Beach Boys again because of the double whammy of Pet Sounds and Good Vibrations. I love Aftermath. I love Revolver, but it doesn't come close for me. And then 67, this is the hardest one because I think this is actually the strongest Stones year and the strongest Beatles year the whole decade, and probably the second strongest Beach Boys year. So this was a hard choice. I'm going to ultimately go with the Beatles, and actually the Stones second, but the Beatles first. Just because the Beatles stuff is so good between Sgt. Pepper, Magical Mystery Tour, all of the standalone singles, All You Need Is Love and Penny Lane and Hello Goodbye. They're all amazing. And it's just consistent quality across almost all of their music. And then 68, I'm going to have to go Beatles because White Album is basically 2 albums versus the Stones and the Beach Boys they got 1 each. And they've just got so many great songs the Beatles do this year that it's hard to come close, I guess, for the other 2. Although the best Stones and the best Beach Boys songs are definitely up there this year. You know, Sympathy for the Devil and Street Fighting Man rank up there with the very best Beatles songs, as does stuff like, I don't know, Do It Again and maybe Little Bird and stuff off of Friends. And then 69, this is a hard one. I'm ultimately going to give it to the Beach Boys because I'm never that huge on Abbey Road. For me, it's like more of a 4-star, something like that album, versus I love 2020. And I just love that album cover to cover. And the Beach Boys also have big singles like I Can Hear Music and Breakaway this year that really distinguish them. So yeah, I'm gonna go with that. That's 3 for the Beatles, 3 for the Beach Boys. I'm sorry, Stones. They came in second a couple years, but yeah, I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, it looks like a certain band is gonna dominate for me, but 1964, I have the Beatles as number 1. I probably like Hard Day's Night the most out of this all, and the Beatles for Sale. I like that better than, well, what, 64 I'm thinking. I like it more than the Christmas album and maybe Shut Down. And so I get the edge to the Beatles, and yes, early Stones isn't my favorite. 65, I'm giving it to the Beach Boys, and with the help of the Beach Boys today, and well, Summer Days also is very cool. And maybe I'm not the biggest fan of Rubber Soul, even if I like it, but so wasn't quite easy decision to give it to Beach Boys. And well, Stones, similar story to 64, even if I think some of their songs are really starting to become highlights of the years. 66. I gave this to the Beatles, Revolver just being my favorite. Pretty clearly, actually. I love Revolver, my favorite Beatles album. But yeah, well, I don't know which I prefer, Pet Sounds or Aftermath, but I guess Beach Boys would have Good Vibrations as a single for 1966, and that might give the second spot to the Beach Boys with that help. And then 67, also gonna give it to Beatles. Wild Honey is my favorite album, probably out of these bands in 67. But I think there's the consistency of Magical Mystery Tour and Thanking on Titles Today. Sgt. Pepper's is I gave the edge to in 1967. Although I'm a big fan of the Stones album from 67, there's Satanic Majesty's Request. And was there another Stones album in 67? Oh, Between the Buttons. Yeah, I like it too. So probably the hardest decision to make. But I still, yeah, gonna give it to Beatles. So it's 3-1 to 0, kind of. Beatles is winning. The 68, again, Beatles. White Album. It's a great one. What we have Friends, and we have Baker's Banquet. So probably Stones might be my second of the year, because of Sympathy of the Devil is one of my favorite songs ever. And The 69. This was also a bit like, I gave the edge again to Beatles. It's strange because I've been almost basing on these two albums and give it to Beatles, even if I like 2020 more than Abbey Road and Yellow Submarine. But some of those Beatles songs are so big on me, like well, Something Can Come Together, and well, Aidan doesn't like that one song that I'm not gonna name, but it's okay. But but yeah, it's looking like the Beatles is winning. It's 5-1-0. Even if I'm not the biggest fan of the Beatles, but while I do like them, but I still had to give it to Beatles. But if 70s, then Stones would start winning there. But obviously we can't do those because Beatles.
Yeah, I would definitely give Stone 72 for sure, and 78.
71 for me.
71, I might go Beach Boys just because of Surf's Up, but 70 would be
71's
Beach Boys. And then
Yeah, 70.
Hmm.
Stones kind of lagged by not releasing anything in 70 though.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. True.